Hi, you're listening to She Shield, your one-stop pod for all topics personal safety. I'm your host, Sofia, and my goal is to help educate women and men on concealed carry, martial arts, and all topics self-defense. Really quick before we start today, if you all would take a moment to rate the podcast, that would help so much. I believe we have 52 ratings now on Spotify. It just helps get our name out there. So if you have 5 seconds, you can scroll to the top, click those stars, and add a genuine rating. That would help so much. This episode is brought to you by Big Tech's Ordnance, your soon-to-be favorite retailer for all of your firearms needs. BTO believes in only selling high-quality gear for responsibly armed citizens, as well as providing pre- and post-sale support. BTO values firearms training and supports firearms instructors nationwide. They even pay for their own staff to train with high-level instructors to ensure that when you as the consumer reach out, you are taken care of. Today, we have Caleb Giddings back on the podcast, and today is particularly special because it is Caleb Giddings' birthday. I couldn't believe that he scheduled it on his birthday, but I feel so special because we're going to kind of go into a little bit of info from maybe how he got started with firearms in general related to his birthday. But I'm so excited, Caleb, that you're back on. Thank you so much for coming on, especially today of all days.
Well, it's a work day, so I figured I didn't want to actually do anything today, and this is technically a work call because we're going to talk
Oh,
about Taurus, the company that I work for.
right.
So
Okay.
this is a way more fun way to spend a work day than replying to emails.
Ooh,
And
yeah,
if you're my boss and you're watching this, I promise I'll reply to emails later today. But
absolutely.
but no, yeah, it's funny. So for people who don't know, I'm Caleb. I'm the general manager of marketing for Taurus USA. You can Google anything else you want to find out about me because it's all pretty much out there, including the fact that I'm still in the Air Force Reserve. I'm a fairly high level competition shooter, and a whole bunch of other fun stuff. But to your point, it is my 42nd birthday today. And we were chatting about this before the call. And I realized that the first time I ever shot a center fire, actually a gun of any type, not counting like a BB gun or a Nerf gun, was on my 8th birthday. So my dad was an LA County Sheriff's deputy, and I have three brothers. And it's difficult to get, I don't want, not personal time, that's the wrong word, but sometimes it's difficult to make big events feel special, right? Like we loved Christmas. We always had great Christmases, but with four of us and cousins and all of that, it was much more of a group event. But my dad every year would take each one of our birthdays off from the PD and would take us to do whatever the hell we wanted, whether that was go to a Dodgers game, which I went to many Dodgers games growing up as a result of that. Or in this case, I wanted to go shooting because I was at that age where from media and stuff like that, I was like, guns are cool because Han Solo has a gun and Han Solo is cool. So I want to shoot a gun. And my dad was like, okay. So he took me out and I went shooting, and I shot at 8 years old. I remember he had some crappy 22 bolt action rifle that everyone is required by law to have. But he also had an HKP7, and he let me shoot that. And so if you guys don't know, like the HKP7 is the squeeze cocker. It's a very unique gun. And I shot that, and I was pretty much hooked from there. So it was funny that came up because it was such a part of my journey. Because I know lots of kids who go out and they shoot a gun for the first time, like, this is fine. And I was like, inject this straight into my veins. This is going to be my entire personality for the rest of my life.
I love that. Oh my God, my voice just totally cracked. I was, I was just getting teary-eyed and all of that. I'm joking, but
Oh, yeah,
seriously,
sure.
that is that is such a sweet story. Thank you so much for sharing that on the podcast today. I think that's lovely. Do you do anything on your birthday, like special when it comes to shooting to celebrate that?
No, as I've gotten older, what I like to do is abuse myself physically to prove that I'm still not an old
Oh,
man.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's very, very wise. On my 40th birthday, I ran 10 miles.
Oh,
I don't remember what I did last year, but it was probably something, I think I think I did some kind of crazy ruck last year. And then this year, because it was a work day, I didn't have a lot of time. I went for a 15-mile bike ride, and I set a PR in the 20K segment, and my goal when I left was, so I don't have like a road bike, right? I have a mountain bike that I ride on the road, or that I ride on trails and stuff around here. And my goal was to beat the world record half marathon running time on the bike. Because that would mean I was averaging more than, like, by the way, the world record half marathon time for a runner is 57 minutes and 30 seconds. That
Okay.
means someone runs 13.1 miles in under an hour, runs
Mm-mm.
with their legs.
Mm-mm.
That's insanity.
Doesn't sound right. That's
No, it's
weird.
crazy.
Yeah.
It's no, it's nuts.
I ran a
So
5K the other day, so this is humbling me even more than
yeah.
my
Oh
time.
no. I used to run 5Ks for fun, and like my PR in a 5K was like a 22 or something, which is, not bad when
That's
you
not
have
bad.
legs the size. When you have hobbit legs, a 22 and a 5K is not bad, all right?
Okay, okay.
But no, so I did a 13.1 miles today in 57:20, so about 10 seconds faster than, again, the world record running time. I was 10 seconds faster on a bicycle.
That's
So,
awesome.
not fast for a
But
bicycle, but it's good exercise. And
right.
I've really, and I cannot bring myself to be one of those spandex wearing dorks with the shoesies that they clip into the
Right,
pedals, with the
right.
little helmets. Because, like, okay, so hang on. So
Okay.
to back this up, I have this whole theory
Yeah.
that a bicycle is actually the best, like, post-apocalyptic survival vehicle,
Okay.
because especially if you're by yourself, or even if you're with someone else on a bicycle, because you take a bike like mine, it's a mountain bike. I can take it into most terrain. I can put a rack on it, load it up with a certain amount of gear, plus what I can carry on my body. And it's quieter than a car, so I'm not going to alert the zombies because
Right.
with the engine or anything like that. It's way more maneuverable than a car. You can get it in and out of a lot of spaces that you can't get a car in and out of, and it never runs out of gas. So in a zombie apocalypse, I think a bike's actually a really good
I
option.
like that.
And so then in my head, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna ride a bike for exercise and to get better at it, but I'm not willing to sacrifice the practical aspects of my bike to get better at biking. I like the fact that I can take my bike off road. I like the fact that I can ride it in street clothes and hop off of it and go into a store or something like that and be relatively normal. I don't want to. I don't want to be, and I don't want to become the USPSA shooter of bike riding,
Right.
because where and there's nothing wrong with those
Right,
guys,
right,
right?
right, right,
They're,
right, right.
because Lord knows I have an entire drawer here full of specialized gear just for shooting competitions. But I've already done that for one thing in my life. I don't want to do it for another one of my hobbies where I become obsessive about getting really, really good at it. Because,
Absolutely.
well, then the other part is every time one of those spandex wearing assholes pass me, I think I should get a faster bike just so I can pass that guy.
Right.
And I'm like, no,
Absolutely.
Caleb, enjoy something.
Right. Absolutely. You should definitely enjoy it. I think that's an awesome birthday uh celebration thing. Every birthday of mine, I get really excited. There's like a little fly, sorry. I get really excited about eating a dessert and not feeling guilty about it. But I also like to work out on the day of my birthday because it makes me feel better, all the endorphins. I've never thought about
Mhm.
challenging myself to see how much I can do every year to like remind myself that age is just a number and it is what I make it.
I got the idea from my mom on her 62nd birthday. She ran 6.2 miles.
Oh my goodness.
So stuff like that. So
Wow.
that's actually where I get it from. Is I get it from my mom, who is I don't know what the term is for like a yoga black belt, but she has like her fifth degree. No, because there's like certifications and
Yes,
stuff.
there
She has
are.
her
Uh-huh.
whatever like a fifth degree black belt in yoga is what my mom does. And she
That's
says that
incredible.
red wine and yoga will make you live forever. And I'm like,
Mm.
brilliant.
Yes, definitely the red wine part. Absolutely. No, I love
Yeah,
that. How
absolutely. And yoga for sure.
Oh, for sure. Also, since we're on this tangent, I do, even though, you brought it back, I'm gonna take us back.
That's
All I
okay.
can think of in the zombie apocalypse is one of those bicycles where you do clip in and then you're trying to run
Mhm.
away and then you need to get off and you can't clip out.
Or you're running away and it's just
Ooh,
click, click,
it's
click,
just
click, click,
tap
click, click,
shoes.
click, click,
Yes,
click.
exactly. I remember one of my first memories with my dad. He loved to take us on hikes and he loved to like ride his bike while my mom walked with us, you know? And I feel like that says something about him, but we'll move on from that. I remember him coming up on his bike and trying to get off and he couldn't unclip and he just fell over and there's nothing he could do. And I remember just
You're
thinking,
just like,
I'm never doing that. Just like that. Yes. He just, yep, keeled
and it's
over.
such a slow-mo fall over
Exactly.
too, because your foot gets stuck trying to come out of the clips, and you're like,
Yeah.
son of a, and
Right.
like and again, it's it's something, it's that idea of, it's where you cross over from practical into specialized, right? And like
Mm-hmm.
there's value, so if you're riding a special a road bike that you clip in, it's made out of carbon fiber and all of that other stuff, there's still value in that, right? You're still getting cardiovascular training, you're still building your endurance, you're still getting practical value out of it. And I don't
Right.
dispute that, but you're now training in a specialized way, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yep.
just like the shooting sports. If I shoot USPSA, there's still value in it for me as a shooter, because I'm working on gun handling, I'm working on, target discrimination, all of these other skills. But at a certain point, I stop training. But at a certain point in any sort of sport, any sort of hobby like that, there comes a point where if you want to get better, you have to stop training just for practical value and training to win the game itself, or
Okay.
training for the thing itself, right? Like
Yes.
think about strength training, right? If you just want to get stronger, you're not going to just do one thing, right?
Yep.
But if you want to have the world record female bench press, then your training is going to then become specialized. You'll still get benefits from it. You'll still get stronger, but the overarching practical benefit of being stronger and healthier then gets put aside a little bit for, I want to be the best bench presser in the world, or the best USPSA shooter in the world, or whatever it is. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that, until you are so far down the path of specialization that you've forgotten that most people are just doing it for practical benefit.
Mm.
And you think that the things that you do as a specialized athlete or performer in this area are things that everyone should be doing.
Ooh, yes. This is something I won't say who I was speaking with this about the other day, but we definitely went on a tangent together about how I'm seeing a lot of competition female shooters now become concealed carry spokeswomen. And
Hmm.
while I'm seriously like so glad that they're doing that, I think that supports the Second Amendment. I think that um, just brings awareness to it, empowers people. There, I have noticed a lot of misinformation about certain safe ways of concealment, and these are things that like I used to support and I used to even do as a concealed carrier, and then I learned how there are safer options out there, and it took me time to learn. And it's not even that these people are coming from a place of malice or the intention to harm.
No,
It's just that they're so far down that road with competition that I think they think it transfers and it doesn't, or maybe it's just a marketing thing. But you just brought that to mind.
I think if I were to be less than charitable, I would say for some of them, it is just and this is male, female, whatever.
Yeah,
I think some of it is marketing, right? It's,
absolutely.
oh, I've been sponsored by, Galco holsters is a perfect example, right? If I was a competition shooter sponsored by Galco holsters, Galco doesn't make any competition holsters.
Right.
They make concealed carry holsters, and
Hmm.
they make reasonable quality holsters, reasonable, like, mid-tier quality leather holsters.
Yeah.
I have several of them,
Mhm.
like, in this immediate area around
Yes.
me.
And your awesome workbench.
But if I was a strictly competition shooter and I was marketing a holster for a concealed carry product, I now need to find a lever to pull to make that marketing connection, right? So I think some of that exists, for sure. And then I think some people come at it from a point of view of shooting is shooting, and that's true, because shooting is shooting, right? Like, all shooting is exactly the same. You need to line up whatever your aiming device is on whatever you're aiming at, and press the trigger in such a way that you don't disturb that. That's it. That's all shooting is in any context. But what happens is people, I think, lose that contextual nature of it, where what we're doing at a USPSA match transfers in terms of skill development. But if I go shoot a USPSA match with a 1911 with a 2.5 pound trigger, and then I'm telling people to carry a striker fired semi-automatic pistol that has a 5 pound trigger, there needs to be there needs to be an understanding of the differences in between how these platforms work. There needs to be an understanding of the differences of just how to live your life around it, right?
Yes.
What I really don't like is competition shooters who, who teach or train concealed carry, but then don't actually carry. Well, it's not my vibe. Carry your guns.
And so the way you can tell by the way they're promoting concealment. That's the way you can tell. Like, and again, I say this as someone who's gone through a similar route. Not that I came from being, an incredible competition shooter, but I did go through a time where I felt the need to post and I wasn't actually practicing as much in my personal life. And I had a big wake up call. I had an incident happen where I was actually dealing with a stalker situation, and it kind of hit me, and I was like, oh, I actually need to carry everywhere. Like, if I run down to get my mail, carry like everywhere. And it really opened my eyes. And then I started thinking back, and I was like, how could I do this? Like, I was promoting things without really testing them or even giving them the attention they deserved. So coming from that, like, I did things then. I would promote things that I would wear every now and then, but once I started wearing them every day, I would realize how they weren't as efficient as I thought they were. And then I moved on to better things. And that's what got me, posting the Enigma and so on. So.
Well, and that's a big thing, is that, if people want to talk about concealed carry from a point of expertise, it helps when you actually carry your gun on a regular basis,
Yes.
And like I've spent enough time carrying a gun that I have opinions about how I like to carry a gun. I have opinions about optimal ways I think people should carry guns. And I also, as I've gotten older, have become way less dogmatic than I used to be. And I'm way more open to other things. Like, I saw you went for a run in an HPG chest bag the other day.
Yes, because
like
of
this
you.
thing.
Yes.
This is my bag that I wear on the bike.
Cool.
And it has a gun in it right now, because I have enough guns that I can just pre-stage different guns and different pieces of concealed carry equipment, because they're all the same too. They're all Taurus 856s. So it's not like one's a Glock and one's a different thing. They have the same trigger pull. But I love this. But it's funny, because I saw your thing and I've tried running in this, and I don't like it for running nearly as much as I like it on the bike.
Oh, interesting. Okay, cool. That's good to know.
It's fine for running, but it bounces. Even when I have everything like super cinched down and like it's as tight as I can make it, it still will bounce a little bit when I run.
I didn't notice it. I saw the video I recorded later, and I saw the bouncing, but I didn't feel it. Maybe my music was too loud.
I don't know how to say this. I'm not used to having things on the front of my body bounce when I run.
Oh, boobs. That would make introduce.
There's no motion here when I'm running.
Oh.
And so when there's something there that is moving, I'm like, this feels strange.
Oh, no. This perspective is really good to have. Like, for me, it didn't make a difference because I'm used to a little movement. So, like, if it was moving with me already, then I wouldn't notice it. But for a guy, hell yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And these are the conversations that people sometimes don't have, especially like guys who are recommending concealed carry products for women.
Ooh, yeah.
or vice versa, because Lord knows that like newsflash, everyone, boys and girls are physiologically different. And that matters. Like, and it matters in ways that people don't sometimes think about, like hip mobility, right? Or, your ability to, hip mobility, upper body strength, the way, you could take, I am a 170-pound adult male. You could take me and put me next to a 170-pound woman, and our bodies are going to be completely different. We're going to have completely different performance envelopes. Our VO2 max will be different. All of the shit, like a 170-pound athlete, we're going to be completely different. And we ignore that a lot at our own detriment, where we're like, no, here is the one-size-fits-all solution for everyone. I'm like, there is no one-size-fits-all solution. There are certainly things that are optimal, but you can't just shoehorn everybody into this box and say what works for Sofia at 5'10" is going to work for Caleb at 5'6". No, it's not. We're not the same thing, and
Right.
there's infinite variation amongst all people.
Absolutely. I think that's an excellent reminder. Absolutely. There's something you said. Oh, yeah. And uh, even like within being a female, not this isn't to me, this is not oversharing. This is just life. Like I'm pretty small chested. I like my chest size because it makes things like running easier. But I know friends that are larger chested, and I don't think they would like the same running pack. You know what I mean?
No, probably not.
It would probably
I
be like the cherry on top of already having all that weight in the front. Like it would be like the last thing they want and probably want to carry IWB or something like that. So,
well, and that's why I actually just ordered an HPG fanny pack because
ooh, cool.
I really like the functionality of the chest bag, because for the last couple of days, I have been trying to live with it as an everyday thing, right? Because
Hmm.
it had been, I had only worn it really as a workout piece of kit.
Yeah.
But then what was happening is I'm dropping my son off at daycare, and then I'm going straight from daycare back to the house and jumping on my bike and trying to get some miles in, right? So in order to save myself time, I would just get ready for my bike ride, and I would put the chest bag on and all of that, and drive my kid to daycare, and drop him off and feel like the world's biggest dork. Like I'm
I could
standing there
see
in
why,
my
yeah.
friggin'
Yeah.
workout clothes with my chest bag on, being like, "Hi,
Hello.
yeah, I'm just I got a pouch
Right.
up here like a kangaroo."
Yes.
So I was like, let's switch this up for a fanny pack
Right.
for stuff, but for stuff like that, right? And I know you've dealt with the difficulties of fanny pack carry, and I would never say this is the best way to carry a gun.
Right.
But if I'm running out of the house to take my kid to school and I don't want to, and I'm wearing PT gear because I'm going to go for a run or go for a bike ride after that, and I don't want to like do all of the other stuff of like put my Enigma on, take my Enigma off, da 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 da. It's kind of handy. So
Yes.
yeah, I think that the being open minded about situations and solutions that because 10 years ago I never would have said carrying a fanny pack. I'd have been like, no, fanny packs are terrible.
Yep. I used to do the whole never carry off body talk. That was like not even, I was probably like 8 months ago until I started needing that and had a personal
Well, now here's an
experience with
interesting
it.
question.
Yeah, please.
Would you really consider a fanny pack off body? Because I don't.
I think it's a hybrid.
I do, yeah.
It's as long as it stays on you, it's not. But I do bring up the same issues that purses carry, which is what am I trying to say? That purses cause, which is if you take it off of your body, it's you no longer
Mhm.
have the gun on you, so it has to remain on your body. That's the only. I definitely call it a hybrid because of that aspect. Like
Yeah.
sometimes when I'm
Well, I
running,
think. Go ahead.
yeah, I've just grabbed my fanny pack before to throw it on like around my shoulder, but I've had things in my hand, so I've put it around my arm before and like gotten into my garage car in the garage like that to then put it around me. And it's like even in that, like say I were to like not transition or to wear it like a purse, like at that point it's to me it's off body because it's a lot easier to
Yeah,
take off.
I would agree with that, because like to me, my definition of off body is something like if I have a gun in my backpack, that's
Yes.
off body carry, right?
Agreed.
Because it's any situation where there is a statistically high likelihood that I could set the thing down,
Yeah.
and that's uh, uh, purses, backpacks. But like for me, if like once the fanny pack is on, because with the Hill People pack, the front pouch, I've got my wallet, my car keys, and my other stuff in there. It's like that's my pocket. So
Right.
then I have the gun pouch is dedicated just to the gun. But yeah, I guess I don't think of it as off body because I don't take it off, right?
Right.
It's on, even with the chest bag, it's on from the second I leave the house to walk to my shed to get my bike until I have put my bike away, turned my headphones off, stopped, done all of that. Then the run is over. That's when I take it off and I just hang it back up.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I never, the thing of it as a hybrid makes sense, because I guarantee that lots of people do put a gun in the fanny pack and then just take it off and set it down.
Yeah,
Don't do
absolutely.
that.
Right. No, definitely not. And I don't have kids at home, so I like when I come home I do hang it up and I do keep my firearm in there. Um, but if I have my nieces and nephews come over, it gets locked up with the rest of my
Mhm.
other guns. So,
Actually, the fun thing that I have, so I have I keep a loaded gun in it, and I hang it on these hooks. So I have essentially a closet with it locks. That's where I keep
mhm,
all my guns. So
yeah.
then I just shut the closet door and lock it, and all of
Yeah,
my loaded guns are in there.
perfect.
Yeah,
I
it's
love that.
handy. It's
Yeah,
nice. It is
absolutely.
nice having a dedicated space in my house for firearms and firearm related equipment. You saw my ammo pile on the
Yes,
floor.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Terrible.
No, I just did spring cleaning and it's not spring, but we call it spring cleaning still. And,
Pish posh.
right. And yes, we have a room downstairs for our bug out stuff, and that's where most of them go. And then I have a dedicated safe in my office, and then the office door is also a lock in itself because I'm just like,
Nice.
not paranoid, but like kids are
No, but
curious.
it's good
So,
to have it's good to have security, right?
right.
You want to stop. Chuck Haggard is fond of saying that if you don't want people to steal stuff out of your car, lock your car. You
Yes.
know,
Right.
and if you don't want people to walk into your house during daylight times when decent folk are supposed to be at work, lock your doors. So these
Yeah.
are all reasonable precautions.
Yeah.
Completely unrelated. I wanted to ask you
Yeah.
about the Sig Rose thing because I saw you were posting
Yes.
that while I was out of the country,
Yeah.
and it looked awesome.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So it's a little bit of a new program that Lena is rolling out. And for those that do not know, I've still yet to post an official announcement on my page. I've just been posting on my story. So I'm an assistant instructor under Lena Mitchell, under SIG. So it's directly under her for the Rose program. And it's essentially a Shoot Rose, Shoot SIG collab where we take women through a extensive basic pistol course and we then walk them through a shoot sig competition, which I've from the I guess by now we've taught 4 classes. From the 4 I've done with her so far, it gives women this first of all great foundation to shooting, and then also a glimpse into what they could do next and work up to. Because
Mhm.
like the few people that felt overwhelmed by it were just it was just their first competition, and it was those like first jitters, and I would walk them through. I had to do my first USPSA competition basically just diving straight in without a little intro. So this is like a great place to get those jitters out. And once they realized that, everything was good. But learning and teaching under Lena has been amazing. The way she structures her curriculum is awesome. In fact, I've like basically rewrote my entire basic pistol class because I was just like, she does it so efficiently with the little time she has. So she's someone that applies being a world class shooter to now a concealed carry instructor very well, in my opinion.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I think that's awesome. I think the industry at large needs more stuff like that because one of the things where I think we fall down is supporting people after that gun purchase, right? And I get it; it's my job. I work for Taurus. Hey guys, you should all go buy a Taurus GX4 like right now,
I agree with that.
or
I
an
like the GX4.
856. And that's a great thing, right? Like, so if somebody listens to this and they go buy an 856 or they go buy a GX4 and it's their first gun and they want to conceal carry and now they have this gun and they're like, now what the do I do?
Mhm.
And there's so many people that have that now what the hell do I do moment. And we do not always as an industry well, and the problem is, I think, is that there are loads of resources for that person in that "what the hell do I do" moment, but companies in the industry don't necessarily do a good job of supporting them and a good job of providing access to that, right? Like in a perfect world, if you bought a Taurus, if you bought a Taurus from from a gun store, there'd be a thing in the box with a QR code, and you would scan it and say, "Hey, Taurus recommends follow up training from these," or it could take you to like I don't know. Probably the NSSF would have a good website for that where you could scan the QR code and it'll show you like basic firearms instructors in your area. Something like that would be great. It's actually a really good idea. I need to write that
Absolutely.
down.
That's,
Hang on.
that's a big, while you're doing that, that's where live fire has uh, a lot
Hey,
of
good pivot.
potential. No, for real. So I really
Well, it was
like
a
to
good pivot.
mention,
That was a compliment.
oh, good, good. I'm so glad. So I joined Livefire when they had, soft launched and they were initially just the training side of the app. And they've now become a resource for the community to be a community, so the social side of it. And one way that they're doing that is providing brands pages, so that say you were to ship out a Taurus and then the box comes with a QR code, kind of like the SIG Rose box goes out. You
Mhm.
could scan that QR code, it would take you directly into the live fire group. And then within that group, you have everything from a social community to resources. So, say you had an instruction manual or instructions on how to, if you, I don't know, like for the Rose thing, it comes with a Vaultec safe, instructions for the Vaultec safe, all the way to drills that you can run in the app with the in-app par timer and logbook. And then there's also a place for articles, so any blog pieces about that, all within one social community and group. And then in the app, you can operate as yourself, so as Caleb Giddings, or you can switch over to Taurus and communicate and engage as Taurus and have an official brands
Yeah,
page that links to
I
it.
remember the live fire guys telling me about this and me
Yes.
thinking this is all a really good idea, and then me doing absolutely nothing about it because
We need to get you
I
guys
have,
back in a
we do
meeting.
know, and we do, and but like stuff like that's so important, and I think
Yes.
it's hugely important because it helps. And part of it too is it helps information not get lost, right?
Hmm.
Like, and I've talked about this in other shows and even maybe with you, but one of the difficult things about my journey, and I don't mean difficult in that it was bad, but difficult in that I had to put more work into it than other people. One of the has been going through the revolver space, and I've essentially rediscovered, and I don't like the way I'm phrasing this because it makes me sound smarter than I actually am. I have worked my way through a trial of process and error into trial of process and error through a process of trial and
I
error.
knew what you were
There
trying
we
to say.
go. Let's get. Hang on. Let me take this word there. That one goes there. Through trial and error, I've worked my way and developed techniques that were highly functional for me based on what I was trying to do with a gun, only to find out that these were things that people had known about for some time. Because when the really highly skilled gunfighters and revolver shooters were out there, there wasn't YouTube, and a lot of those guys are dead now. And they didn't necessarily commit that information to, you know, a manual or something like that, right? And resources like Livefire can prevent that from happening. And we try to do that with the Taurus blog, where it's not just product placement. It's not just, hey, go here's 6 reasons to buy a Taurus GX4, but we're trying to have good information so that good information doesn't get lost, so that the next Caleb, the next version of me who decides he wants to be a bolt action rifle wizard, right, doesn't have to go figure out some of this stuff the hard way, and he can just go to Livefire or go to a blog or something like, oh, well, these guys 30 years ago had figured this out. Let's try what they were doing. And, because in 2057, I want people to still have access to this information, assuming the sun hasn't exploded or whatever.
Oh yeah, right, absolutely. Zombie apocalypse, all that. No, for
Yeah.
sure. I That's definitely their goal. And my favorite thing, I think, just to kind of um, add an ending note to this, is not that we have to stop talking about it, but just to the live fire chat, is that they care so much about community feedback, unlike
Hmm.
any other social platform. So things like make this button say skip instead of done or cancel, things like that. Like, we have a dev team working on things constantly. So
That's
they
awesome.
just want to make that community easier for everyone and, of course, accessible at the end of the day, since we are losing access to each other day by day on all platforms. So,
We
except for
are,
Twitter,
and
but
I, except for
or
Twitter, but
X.
Twitter is also a clown show. So, we don't, it's funny because, and I know I've said this, I firmly believe that at some point within my lifetime, Meta and other social media platforms will simply just say no to guns, to firearms related content. There will be a tragedy, there'll be a mass casualty event, there'll be something like that, and Meta platform will just be like, nope, gone. and we will lose access to all of that. So having places where that information can, like, for the record, guys, if you think that having your information on Facebook is going to be a permanent archive of that information, I disagree. I hope I'm wrong. I would really
Right.
love to be wrong about that, but I don't think it will be. I think that there is just, there's just too much. I mean, it almost happened after the Christchurch shooting in New Zealand because the guy live streamed it on Facebook. And Facebook really cracked down on firearms related content to the point now today that if I, from our official brand page, post a picture of a gun that is within Facebook's written community guidelines, it will get removed. And there's no rhyme or reason to it. It's coin toss whether or not it comes
Right.
down or not. So yeah, get your content off social media, guys. Well, unfriendly social media.
Right.
Live fire is great. It's funny that I say this because forums used to be like where forums were Facebook before there was Facebook for gun people, right? And but forums are run by friendly people, and forums aren't necessarily a bad option. Having your own website, not a bad option. Things like that. So just be aware. That's like my Chicken Little thing is I very much am worried about what's happening with social media.
Absolutely. Chicken Little thing. I haven't heard that saying. That's funny.
Yeah, the sky
No,
is falling.
yeah, absolutely. No, that's very true. Yeah, I think this is a good PSA. I think this is the perfect time. A small example of this is when Linktree took down a bunch of 2A
Oh
custom.
yeah.
Yeah, and then Livefire released TapRack. It's spelled TAPRAC, and it's basically a copy of Linktree, but we don't discriminate based on content.
And there's a link to it in your bio on Instagram. So if you guys want to sign up for a TapRack account, you can go to Sofia's Instagram and
absolutely
hit that, and you'll go there.
Yes, it's a good example. But if you can transfer over your Linktree now to TapRack, it's so much easier than having to go back and find all your links later on. So you bring a good point to like begin now, like making your trail permanent and also like not outsourcing, but repurposing on other platforms. It's a great topic. I would love to pivot with you. We had a really cool topic planned for today, and I want to make sure we bring it up. So I'll start by asking you, where have you traveled this year? Tell us about your travels.
So I've been all over, as like most years. I'm already at 90,000 miles just on American Airlines for the year, and I've been to. I went to Texas for an axis deer hunt with the Taurus expedition rifle, which we're certainly going to talk about. And then I shot Bianchi Cup in Columbia, Missouri. That was that whirlwind week that I was out in. I went from Air Force active duty training in Alabama to NRA annual meetings to Bianchi Cup, all like back to back to back to back. I was gone for a month for that one. That was a lot. And then most recently, I just came back from my first ever safari. I was in South Africa for total time. I was gone about 10 days, but that's because it's 2 days of travel on both ends. And then I was actually down there hunting for 6 days. It is an experience that is difficult to encapsulate because it is so alien to anything that you and I are used to having happen in the United States, right? Like from everything. Well, first off, they drive on the wrong side of the road in South Africa, and I was driving, so I'm like, this is fun. The number of times that I went to turn on the turn signal and I hit the windshield wiper instead because it's reversed. In an American car, my left hand hits the turn signal. That's where it is.
Right.
Oh no! In all of these, left hand hits the windshield wiper. So I was like, son of a bitch, and like I did it a lot. It was frustrating. But no, and it was. There's so many things to unpack from that experience. There's some really fun stories, and I can tell the story of the kudu that I shot, which was an amazing chase. But the thing that struck me while I was down there was, and this ties into the idea of forgotten knowledge as well. I'd actually brought that up because I was going to use that to pivot to this, but we got there anyway. Is that so before we spent 20 years at war. Really, really smart self-defense trainers and instructors were big advocates of hunting. They said that if you carry a gun for personal protection, you should also hunt. They didn't necessarily, you didn't have to get up early in the morning to go shoot deer, every year. Like you didn't have to make it your passion. But Jeff Cooper even wrote about how he believed there was value in people who are carrying a gun for self-defense having had some sort of hunting experience. And that's not, at least to my knowledge, a conversation that we have very commonly anymore. And and I think part of that is because, we did fight the global war on terror for 20 plus years. So we have a lot of high level instructors and law enforcement officers and military veterans who have direct combat experience, and they can use that to help train people for personal protection. But it's still generally illegal for me to just like walk down the street and try to get into a gunfight, right? Like it's probably frowned upon by many, many local law enforcement agencies.
Yes.
And so, so what do you want to do? So what do we do now? Like what do you do to induce pressure, right? You shoot matches, right?
Yes.
And that adds a modicum of pressure. It adds that, it gives you skin in the game, because if you're at a match and you're shooting with your friend, you don't want to screw up and look like a dumb idiot, right? You don't want to have a blonde moment on a stage and be like, I forgot to load my gun or something crazy.
Right.
And I think there's huge benefit in that. But to sort of tell the story, to backtrack the story, when I was in Texas for this Axis deer hunt, the guys there, they have this thing called the hair in the scope drill. And I had to have them explain the name to me, because I'm like, what the hell are you people talking about? And what it is they teach a lot of hunters and a lot of people for that. And when some novice hunters see hair in the scope, they freak out. They go, oh my God, that's the animal that I'm trying to kill. And all of a sudden, all of those nerves blow up to an 11, right? They go from, and it's just like the timer. I'm like, oh, it's a shot. It's the hair in the scope is the shot timer. Cause you're like, I am cool and collected. I am an excellent shooter. Shooter ready. Stand by. Beep. What the fuck am I doing?
Right. Yes.
Like just standing there like a duck in thunder. You don't even know what to
Right.
do with your hands anymore. And so we talked about that, and they have the hair in the scope drill. And I remember shooting the deer that I shot. It was 340 yards. The light was failing. Like I had maybe 2 minutes left before it was pitch black and I couldn't see this thing anymore. And I'm shooting it across a canyon, and I'm laying on a downhill slope. So my legs are actually higher than my head. Like my feet are higher than my head. I've got my rifle on a backpack, and I'm watching this thing in the scope, and I remember not feeling anything. And I'm not saying that like I'm some super badass killer or something like that,
Right.
but what happened to me in that moment was the years of high level competition shooting have given me such a stress inoculation to the stress in this moment, because at that point I was just shooting a target. It just so happened to be made out of tissue. And I remember the guy who instructed the long range rifle class, and who was also my guide for the hunt, said, if he stops moving, are you comfortable to take the shot? And I didn't say anything because I shot it. And dropped it. It was a cool shot. And so then that got me thinking. I'm like, I went down this rabbit hole of like, why didn't I feel anything? Why wasn't I nervous to make that shot? And part of it was because of the training of my competition background, where I've been really, really, really nervous. But another part of it was I didn't really care about shooting that deer, right? There was no emotional attachment to it. It was part of a performance, not a performance, but it was an objective, right? It was just, I have trained here for 3 days. I have shot out to 1,000 yards. Final objective, shoot deer. And I had another day to do it if I didn't get one that night. So I was like, no stress, like zero stress whatsoever. And that was not the same experience that I had in Africa, because in Africa I was invested in shooting these animals. I had goals. I wanted to I wanted to have that, like there were things that I wanted to perform and things that I wanted to accomplish. Uh and it's interesting because some things, like I ran the whole gamut of experiences, but I was never as anxious shooting animals in Africa as I was before a stage of Bianchi Cup.
Okay.
Not even close.
Okay.
And that I attribute entirely to the background I have in competition shooting and dealing with those high pressure environments. But to bring this back, so now let's take a person who has never, they haven't shot, they haven't spent the majority of their adult life in high pressure competition environments, right? Well, I'll ask you a question.
Hmm.
And I apologize if this comes off a little harsh. Have you ever killed anything bigger than a bug?
No. 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 And even bugs sometimes I'm like, "Ah, damn it."
Like, I
It's
need to
like
get my
God is
husband to
watching.
squish this bug.
So yeah, yes, yes. I recently learned that flies can't see white. I saw that on the internet. And so I tested it with a paper towel and just came up on one and it didn't even see it. It just let me
Huh.
kill it. Anyway, that aside, no, I have not. It's not harsh.
Well, and so, but it's and I'm not saying that to be able to defend yourself, you should kill something, because there are thousands and thousands of people who have successfully defended themselves without ever, going hunting or anything like that. Just like there are thousands and thousands of people who have successfully defended themselves without shooting a match. And I think that there's value in those experiences, because I think as a human being, some people have really, really strong blocks against mental or emotional blocks against taking the life of anything, you know? And to find out that you can put a living, breathing, especially a mammal, there's something about shooting a mammal, right? Because it's, fur and hair and things like that. These are all traits that are familiar to us as humans, because we've got, hair and, kind of that other stuff. So I think that for some people, it's probably beneficial to be like, oh, that is a living thing. I can take its life. I know that I am capable, because I feel like if you know that you are capable of dispassionately taking the life of an animal, or even taking it in passion, like I did when I shot my freaking kudu, that then this idea of, I know that there is the capacity to kill within me, because one thing that I can't stand about modern hunting culture is people who are like, it's harvesting. We're harvesting this animal. No, listen, you're fucking killing it. And
Okay.
we take the edge out of that word, because it is actually important. The
Hmm.
fact that, like, I struggle with this, and I promise that I will end this rant and you can ask me a question or something in a minute.
This is
But I
great.
struggle with how we sometimes soften the language of self-defense, because yes, we shoot to stop the threat. Often when you shoot a threat to stop it correctly, it dies as a result. And that's an important distinction that some people, I don't know where the balance is, right? I don't want to like scare people and be like, we're training to kill, because that's not it either. That's not
Right.
what we're fucking doing here.
Right.
But also,
Not to
that is a
masculine.
real thing that you may do. If you carry a gun to defend your life, you need to like have a conversation with yourself, am I capable of taking a human life? And I think that shooting an animal where you are emotionally invested in that end result, where you want to harvest this thing, whether it's for a trophy or whether it's for food, or there's some kind of connection that you have there, it's not the same. Just like competition shooting is not the same as getting into a gunfight, right? But the
Absolutely.
benefit is similar. There is a mindset piece where you're like, I shot this thing that was alive and it is not anymore because of my actions. And if you do that, and then you start sobbing hysterically and crying, maybe pepper spray is a better choice for you. But maybe not. Maybe that was the moment. And I don't know. But I think, and for me, this is very much a recent revelation, because I'm not what you would call a hunter, right? I am not looking up great places to go deer hunting in South Carolina next year because I don't care that much.
Right.
But the opportunities that have presented themselves through my career have been fantastic. And again, I think there's tremendous benefit to people, especially now that we are not in, like, if you, 15 years ago, if you wanted to find out if you could go kill a person, the Marines were taking applications, and you would get to go. And if you went in and you went infantry, you get to go to Iraq, and you might find out if you can kill a person or not,
Yeah,
So
that's a good point.
removing, and again, if you really want to be a hardo, you can go get the special operations, and you'll probably get that chance. But for normal Earth people, if you have that question about do I have the mental and emotional capacity to take a life, well, there are ways that you could go find out. And some of them, they're a lot of fun. Like, I would never have, before this, I never been like, hey, what's fun? Trophy hunting. What's fun? Trophy hunting. It's really fucking fun.
Right.
Shooting
Absolutely.
things is cool.
And I appreciate your candor, just sharing your experience from the past compared to present, and also how new this topic is to you. Not topic, but the ideas you've had recently. I think this is an awesome place to have that discussion. And then if you ever want to come back on, talk about it again, we can do that. The closest thing, you definitely got me thinking about this, I'm sure, as you have for a lot of the listeners, the closest thing to self-defense for me has been ECQC, shooting a dude with a sim gun. And I remember this dude, his name's Matt. I'll never forget him. He didn't have social media, so we couldn't connect. And I wasn't about to be like, give me your number. But he's like 6'5", huge. Anytime like I trained with him, I'd be like, well, shit, like maximum
I'm
effort.
gonna
Cause
get
like
ragdolled.
cause like I'm 5'10", I'm not small. But this dude to me made me feel small. So one of the fights, we were fighting over the gun. I was able to push off of him, takes a few steps back, and fire a round into him, and he kept coming at me. And I was like, I literally said, I shot you, and like, in case you didn't feel it. And he just like, kept this aggressive face on, of course, with his sunglasses, kept walking towards me. I shot him again, and Craig's just, Craig's standing there like this, just watching
That's
this happen.
exactly how he stands too, guys.
Literally,
Record,
exactly.
Craig,
Yes, exactly. And I was like, I shot you. And then I finally just emptied the mag into him because I was like, okay, fuck this. And at first it took me, I felt so bad. I went up to him and I was like, Matt, bro, you good? Like, you okay? And he was like, I'm fine. Like, I think he was like ex-Marine style dude, he was trying to give me a real life.
Did shoot me.
Yes. And Craig was like, this is the difference between a motivated attacker and a non-motivated attacker. Like, if someone's really motivated, you might have to empty your mag. And that was the first time, and I was like shaking. The idea of shooting someone, because I just felt the sim round. I made Craig shoot me. Did I tell you about this?
You did, yeah. You're
yes.
Like, I need to know what it feels like first.
Yes, and then I ran away from him, and then he shot me in the ass. Yeah, okay. So, sorry, he shot me in my left glute. Let me just say it that way. I don't think
you told me that story on the show, though, but you definitely, I think we were at the bar at NRA. And
yes, definitely.
About it.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah. Well, and I think, but that's, so, and I think that's a huge thing, right? And,
right.
To connect it to hunting or that sort of training, and like also fighting, right? Like, if you spar with someone, whether it's striking or some sort of grappling, that person gets a vote in whether or not your technique is successful. And and in a real fight, the person that you're fighting gets a vote into whether or not your technique is successful. And when you are hunting a living thing with a will and all of that, that animal gets a vote, and we try to, and in all of these environments, whether it's self-defense or, fighting or, that kind of stuff, we do what we can to try to limit the vote that the other thing gets, right? Like, when I shot a zebra, and I knew it was going to be a difficult shot because zebra are really, really skittish. And the closest we got was 130 yards, right? I'm not comfortable taking that shot with a handgun, so I shot the zebra with a rifle because I'm trying to limit its vote in this conversation, you know?
Okay.
And I ended up doing the same thing with the kudu that I shot because I really, really, really wanted to shoot a kudu with my Raging Hunter 44 Magnum. I had shot a bunch of stuff with the 44 while I was out there, and it was a really great opportunity to practically test a lot of skill sets against something that gets a vote, that has a will, that has a desire, that woke up that morning and didn't think it was going to die, right? And but yeah, like, you know, whether it's sparring or, you know, an ECQC or hunting, when you incorporate a living being with its own will, that changes the dynamic of everything, right? I missed a shot on an animal that if I had been on a square range in a static environment shooting a moving target, there's a 0% chance I would have missed it. But you incorporate a living thing and adrenaline and a bunch of this other stuff, and all of a sudden that shot got a lot more complex. I'm like, wait a minute, how the fuck did that happen?
Right.
So yeah, but that's why I think stuff like that is hugely beneficial. And, you know, to go back to that lost knowledge, this is not new information. You know, people who have been serious about self-defense have been saying, hey, go hunting, you know, for a long time. But I think I was talking to my friend. Oh, I should connect you with David Yamane, by the way.
Ooh, yeah.
Professor at Wake Forest. He wrote the book called Gun Curious. He was sort of the progenitor of the term gun culture 2.0.
Oh, nice.
And part of what we look at as gun culture 2.0, and now the next level of that 3.0, or however you want to call it, has been a defocus on hunting as the primary use of gun and a focus on self-defense as the primary use and primary reason for owning firearms. And as a side effect of that, a lot of people have the benefits of hunting for someone who is interested in personal protection are not a thing that is commonly talked about. You know, I had to go digging through like archives of Jeff Cooper articles from like the 90s to find where he was talking about it. But yeah, and I think it's, again, and I don't think that you need to be the sort of person who gets up, you know, who it's like deer season's here. I've, you know, got my trail cams out. I've been planning this for months and months on end. I'm so excited to get up at 4 a.m. and go be cold to wait for some stupid fucking deer. You don't need to be that person. Just the same, you don't need to be a USPSA grandmaster to get benefit from competition shooting.
I like that. And that actually brings me to my question, like, how do you get into this? Because I remember I was talking to Laura about shooting because I didn't realize she does hunting as well. Um, and I don't know, I was just thinking, like, how would someone even get started? Do you start with smaller game?
Well, it's funny because, you know, for basically as long as we've had civilization here in the United States, your traditional vector into hunting was through a male figure in your life, whether it was a father, an uncle, or a grandfather. You know, that was how people got into hunting, because it was something that they did with a paternal role model, right, in their life.
Yes.
And you see now with gun culture 2.0 that that's not the case of how people are getting introduced to guns anymore. People get introduced to guns through television, movies, stuff like that. And it may not be an introduction where you're like me. My dad taught me how to shoot. That's the traditional access route. But the good news is that there's a lot of like NSSF has a lot of good resources on it. NRA has a lot of good resources on it. And, you know, one of the neat things is there's a lot of places that can sort of ease you into the experience. So like, you can go, like, if you go, for example, and I'll use a personal example, you can go Google South Carolina boar hunting, right? So we have, you know, wild pigs all over the damn place down here. And there's a place that's not too far from me where you book a reservation, you have a room, they assign you a guide. This guide, you know, will take you out. You can either spot and stalk, which is where like you see the thing and then you like try to creep up on it, or you can sit in a blind and like, you know, kind of be stealthy and quiet and wait for it. And, you know, it costs a certain amount of money and all of that, but that's like that can kind of ease you into it. And then
Ooh.
most states, you will go there, you have a Department of Natural Resources website for whatever state you live in. And that DNR website will have information about licenses that you need to get, public land areas that you can hunt, and all kinds of stuff. And so there's so many. It's just like getting into IDPA or USPSA. You have to be willing. Like, the information will not fall into your lap.
Right.
No one is going to walk up to you onto the street and say, "You there? You should be a USPSA shooter." You'd be like, "Get the
Right.
fuck away from me,
Right, right,
dude."
right. Yes.
And no one's going to do that for hunting, whether it's for subsistence hunting or sport hunting or anything like that. But if you have an interest, if you're listening to this and you're like, I would like to get into hunting, I bet you $100 if you type in how to get into hunting into Google, you will get something pretty useful back. For me, I was not a hunter until I worked in the firearms industry. I didn't hunt before I started working in the firearms industry. And so every experience that I've had that you could term as hunting has largely been a function of my job. And so I've gotten to have some pretty amazing experiences, like prairie dog hunting in Wyoming, pheasant hunting in South Dakota, obviously axis deer hunting in Texas, and African game hunting. But this was, I think, part of why this stuck with me as such a transformative moment is because it was the first time where I had enough agency in what I was doing for the hunt to use it to test skills that I had built through my practical shooting training.
Okay.
Because in a lot of the other times that I've been hunting, it was like, when I was on the media side of things, it would be like, hey, Smith & Wesson is bringing us to this prairie dog hunt. Here's the new rifle that Smith & Wesson is launching that we're going to hunt prairie dogs with, right? But this time, because I run marketing for Taurus USA, I was like, I have spent a good chunk of my life getting what I think to be fairly good at shooting a revolver in double action. I've done a ton of work with red dots on revolvers. I want to put that to the test in a way that is extremely difficult to test anywhere else. So, I wanted to take my Taurus Raging Hunter 44 Magnum with an aim-point acro on it, and I wanted to shoot some stuff in Africa with it. And everyone on the internet was like, oh, well, when the shot gets really hard, you're going to cock it into single action. I fucking didn't. I did not fire a single round out of this gun single action the entire time I was there, and I only missed one shot.
Oh,
I took a 90-yard shot at a kudu that was, I think my hold was good. I think it was just standing in some brush and the bullet probably deflected off something because I airballed it entirely, but also 90 yards with a handgun as a poke.
Yeah.
But no, and so I think if you want to apply this, like, let's take Johnny concealed carry, right? Well, you carry a Glock 19, not you. This guy carries a Glock 19. You can't really hunt with your Glock 19, but he wants to have that experience where he's using gear or something that he's familiar with. Well, you can get a 10 mil and you can go do a boar hunt. You can do a boar handgun hunt with a 10 mil. If you want to find out what it feels like to look at something through the sights of your carry gun,
Right.
you carry a friggin' Glock 19 with a Trijicon SRO on it, get a 10 mil Glock, put an SRO on it and see what happens. You can have that experience. It's out there. You don't have to do it either. Like, if me talking about trophy hunting, you're like, I don't know. I don't know about that. I'm like, that's fine. Don't do it. Go shoot matches. Matches are awesome. I spent 20
Right.
years shooting matches.
That's actually a really good point. I feel like if I killed something, I would want to harvest it to make me feel like a little better. Because trophy hunters don't eat, right? They just
Well, let's talk about that.
yeah.
So, and this isn't 100% true for all trophy hunting, but where I was in South Africa, I was in the Kalahari, and all of the animals that we shot went to feed. Not just like we ate some of them ourselves because there's 8-9 people in camp, so we would have like some of the meat that we had shot would be cooked and served to us by the people running the camp, but we would also feed the camp employees. They freeze a lot of it. It becomes food for when the animals aren't easy to harvest and stuff like that. So in that environment, it's not going to waste. The meat is not going to waste in any way, shape, or form. We actually shot extra animals. We shot some females and some cull animals, which are a term for animals that aren't good for like trophies, specifically to provide extra meat for the camp, for its employees, for the people surrounding it, right?
Oh wow.
So
Okay.
that is one thing about it. But the other thing that people don't understand is also the economic benefit, right? We were in an extremely remote part of South Africa. It was a 9 hour drive from the airport to where we were, and most of it was on dog shit roads. Um, and in that area, you know, let's use a kudu as an example. Kudu is a great big antelope type looking thing. It looks like somebody crossed an antelope and a camel because it's got a
Hmm.
hump. And it's got stripes too. They're super cool looking animals. So if a farmer sees a kudu, he's just going to shoot it, right? And he may eat it. He may just leave it rot in his field. And you've seen that happen in some of like the national parks out there where they've just been poached into oblivion. There's no economic benefit for that, right? But now if, some American asshole like me flies in, pays money to the airlines, pays money to, to a hotel to stay for a night, all of a sudden, when that kudu has an economic value associated with it, it's not just me shooting the kudu. And even if I just shot it and took the horns, that's not going to waste because of all of the people who have jobs because that kudu got to get shot. And especially in a lot of these sub-Saharan African countries, hunting is like the income from hunting is a serious part of their national income. It supports thousands of people's jobs, thousands of people's livelihoods are built around this industry down there. So if you suddenly turn all of that off, these animals are still going to get shot. They're just going to be shot by poachers and people are going to lose their jobs. So it's one of those things that for me, because I was, years ago, anti-trophy hunting. And I think I was anti-trophy hunting because it was such a cool opinion to have, right? It was like,
Right.
ooh, trophy hunting's bad. I would only
Right.
hunt to harvest meat, da 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 da. And it's because I was trying to impose, very, upper class Western sensibilities in countries and economies that I'd never even fucking been to, and I certainly didn't understand. And I'm not claiming to be some sort of like epic expert on the hunting economies of
Right.
sub-Saharan Africa or anything like that, but just being there and having that conversation with the people whose livelihoods it is, you're like, oh, okay, maybe I've not been thinking about this in the best way possible.
Absolutely. And first of all, thank you for sharing that perspective because I feel like you're a, you are a great spokesman on that from your experience. Would you say it helps I don't know if it's called genetic turnover. I don't know the actual term, but when like the older animals kind of it's okay to eliminate them so that
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, is it called genetic? What is it called?
I have
Is there a
no idea,
word?
but there is a
Okay.
science terms for it.
Ooh, let's just say it's called that. First of all, would you explain that, as someone who
Yeah,
understands that better, and would you say that applies to trophy hunting as well?
100%. So
Okay.
when you look at, we have in the United States, we're the apex predator, right? Like the only thing that really controls the white-tailed deer population in the United States are people hitting them with their fucking cars,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah,
but in
that's a good point.
hunting, um,
Right.
and you have to manage these populations because if you let a population go unmanaged, you can have a deer or, in this case, a kudu or an impala or something like that, that is a mature, it's a mature male animal. It has reproduced already. It's sort of like served its genetic purpose. And then if you let it hang out, it could actually reproduce with one of its own children. Like they don't care about that sort of stuff in the animal kingdom. And so it's good for genetic diversity. It's good for the overall health of the population as a whole to harvest mature animals. And it's why we don't, generally speaking, harvest immature animals. We don't want to harvest, young bucks. We don't want to shoot, as many females as we shoot males. We want to try to keep that population managed so that we have a healthy, robust population, because a robust population, and this is not something that I just learned. This is like stuff I've known just from, pro hunting talking points. But a robust population needs to have a little bit of pressure on it to be healthy and robust, right? You look at game populations where hunting is severely restricted or prohibited, and you end up with a lot more sick animals. You end up with a lot more disease and stuff like that, because you're not keeping the herd healthy. You're not keeping that population as vital as it needs to be. And, also, the counterpoint to the arguments about hunting being inhumane is that I guarantee that a 44 Magnum bullet through the lungs is a much cleaner way to die than starving to death because you broke your leg and you're eventually going to get torn apart by jackals. So in terms of ways to go, all of the animals that I shot while I was in Africa died in a much better way than they would have if nature had just taken its course.
That makes so much sense. I just reminded me I was talking to an ex-boyfriend about hunting, and I I was ready to die on the hill of like hunting is wrong, and I had no knowledge of this side of the world. And I remember I was expecting him to be kind of mean about it, because
Mhm.
he loved to mansplain things. I'm talking like my own biochemistry research. He liked to re-explain to me. It was bizarre. Talk
That's
about,
terrible.
oh my God.
Well,
But
I can
he
see why he's an
actually,
ex-boyfriend.
oh, absolutely, absolutely. Um, so he actually stopped and was like, "Do you not know the benefits of hunting on our environment?" And I was like, "No." And he was like, "All right, well, let's talk." And it was like an actually great conversation. And it got me thinking. And like now when I hear other people say it, I don't ever really teach them in that moment. I don't think I don't know enough to really go into detail, but I always encourage them to do a little bit of research on this topic.
Well, let's look at, a perfect example of an out of balance population because hunting is restricted is look at the mountain lion population in California.
Oh, okay.
So it's largely illegal to hunt mountain lions in California. And the population it went through the initial phase where it benefited from that. So that the
Okay.
population, so like if you have like two of an animal left, you shouldn't hunt it, right? But once you get a decent sized population, if that animal is in an area where there is nothing that hunts it, then we are the apex predator. We're the population control method for that, right? Whether you believe in, a God that created us to be stewards of this universe, of this world, or you believe that evolution evolved us to be the smartest, most dangerous thing on this planet, you arrive at the same conclusion: is that we're the smartest, most dangerous thing on this planet. And I believe that we have a responsibility to care for that. And sometimes the ugly part of caring for that is killing things that need to be killed. And you look at, there's been more mountain lion attacks in California in the past 10 years than there were in like the previous 20 something years, right? And those are attacks on people, attacks on animals, attacks on livestock. And if you're a rancher in California, and there's a mountain lion that is killing your cattle, you're going to shoot that mountain lion and you're going to bury it in a ditch, right? And that's it. That's the end of that mountain lion. But what if it was legal to hunt that mountain lion? Well, now maybe some guy pays you 10 grand to come to your ranch and shoot that mountain lion and take its paws and its fangs and put them up on his wall or whatever. And now you've added an economic value to that animal that needed to die. So, and that's where I struggle. Like, I struggle with the argument of outlawing all hunting. Like, another great example is, I remember this. So, I was, my second wife was a horse girl. I had so many red flags: ginger, horse girl. I don't know what I was thinking, but anyway,
Okay.
and we had one of the biggest arguments that we had was unrelated to some of the other stuff, but one of the biggest inconsequential arguments that we had was it was years ago. President Bush signed an executive order legalizing hunting in the some of the wild horse herds in like Nevada and that region, right? And let me tell you, the horse girlies went fucking nuts. They're like, you can't hunt a horse. It's such a beautiful, majestic. Oh, and the American Mustang is a majestic animal. It is a majestic animal. We'd also hunted wolves basically to extinction, so there was nothing hunting them to control their populations. And the blowback from it was so bad that they eventually rescinded it. There were no hunts allowed, and the Bureau of Land Management ended up shooting horses from helicopters to control the population.
Wow.
And they don't talk about that last part. The anti-hunting activists don't talk about that last part because certain animals needed to die to control that, to keep the majestic Mustang herds friggin' healthy. And instead of those Mustangs, those horses dying and adding economic value to these regions, they just got shot out of helicopters, and left to rot in the sun or whatever they did with the corpses. So it's such a, I understand emotionally why people are opposed to stuff like that, right? Like when I was in Africa, I was sitting in a tree blind waiting for a warthog because I really wanted to shoot a warthog with a revolver, and a giraffe came out of the woods to drink at this watering hole, and I was 15 feet away from a wild giraffe. It was the tightest shit I have ever seen in my life. I couldn't shoot a giraffe. I realized in that moment, I can't shoot a giraffe. It's too cool of it. It's like too majestic and just like it of an animal. And so
Yeah.
I understand that emotional argument, but at the same time, if there is a herd of giraffes and they need to have that population controlled, someone is capable of shooting a giraffe, although Lord knows how you mount it. Like I would need a 3-story house to put the thing in there.
That's a good point. Yeah.
If you're ever in New York, go to the New York Natural History Museum in
Okay.
Manhattan and go to their African animals exhibit, because all these animals were harvested on a safari in like the 1915s, and there is maybe 1930s, and there is a giraffe that is 2 stories. Like they had to build the exhibit into the second story to make room for the giraffe. It's pretty cool.
It's
But yeah,
really
no.
cool.
So I don't know. I think that there's a ton of there's a lot of opinions, just like about gun control and self-defense. There's a lot of opinions that come from a good place. I don't think no one wants to see animals suffer. No one wants to see, and because I want to walk this back for a second.
Sure.
I believe that most people who are anti-gun and most people who are anti-hunting are have arrived at these opinions from a place of genuine concern and good faith. All right. They have arrived at opinions that I disagree with, but I don't think they have arrived at them out of a place of malice or bad action. That doesn't mean I don't think that about all of them. I certainly believe that there are people who are advocates for gun control and advocates for hunting out of malice, out of a desire to control other people's actions, but I'm largely unconcerned with the bad actors in those spaces. And I think that most people who are opposed to hunting or opposed to concealed carry or something like that are approaching the issue from a place where they have had these life experiences and been exposed to these information sources and then have made a choice based on their own ethics. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that, and what I hope to be able to do, as I grow older, as I continue in this career, is to be able to connect with those people from a place of, honesty and be like, hey, like, you're upset that I shot a zebra, and I understand that. I didn't just do it. I didn't do it just because I woke up one morning and decided I wanted to kill a zebra. But I also think, and to tie that around, I also think that we do ourselves a disservice when we sort of downplay the fun of things like that, because it is fun. At least it was fun for me. It may not be fun for you, but it was
Right.
fun. And I think if we're like, oh, it was this, and this is another beef I have with like a lot of the modern hunting cultures. They're like, oh, it's this sacred connection between you and the animal and da 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 da. And I'm like, I have shot things and not felt any sort of connection to them, and I've shot things and have felt a connection to them. Don't know if I would call it sacred, but I think that downplaying the fact that also it's fun and it's a unique challenge, it's an amazing experience, does us harm, because then we look. Because if someone were to come to me and say, Caleb, why would you shoot, a kudu? It's a beautiful, majestic, or a wildebeest. Why would you shoot a wildebeest? It's a majestic, beautiful animal. How could you do that? And if my response was like, well, I just really wanted to experience the journey of that, and I, sold them some fluffy bullshit, and then they go on my Instagram page and see me being like, this was the tightest shit of my life.
Right.
It's not genuine. So you need to
Right.
be able to engage in a genuine way, I think.
Absolutely. So does part of you think these people are saying certain things to avoid scrutiny and that they're just
Absolutely.
yeah,
I think
okay.
that the people who are hunting advocates who only use the word harvesting instead of killing are very much saying that to avoid negative media attention or scrutiny from other people and stuff like that. And I think some of them are doing it out of a conscientious decision based on their own ethics, and I'm fine with that. And I think other people are doing it absolutely as a very self-aware ploy to gain more followers or to, avoid negative attention. So yeah, I think that sword cuts both ways. I will never say harvesting. I will definitely say killing or shooting or whatever.
You could say killing and harvesting.
You
I
can,
guess,
you can,
if you
you
want
can say
best of
killing and
both
harvesting.
worlds.
I have
Right.
like 30 pounds of axis meat thawing on my kitchen table right now that I'm going to grind up into hamburgers to give away to relatives and cook this weekend and stuff
Oh,
like
that's
that. So
awesome.
yeah, the deer that I shot, I did bring all the meat back. And let me tell you, axis is the best tasting deer.
Is it?
Yeah. So I've been
I need
told,
to
and
try
I've
it
had a
again.
lot of venison and I've had axis, and I'm like, this definitely tastes closer to beef than any other
Huh.
deer that I've had.
That's interesting. The only deer I've ever had, I was maybe consuming alcohol on a float trip, and I
Oh,
should have just said a
no.
float trip because it's pretty freaking
Yeah,
obvious. But
like we were on a float trip. Oh, so you were drunk. Okay.
so you were drunk. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And one of the girls brought homemade, not jerky. It was like basically what are those, like basically a big cylindrical almost looking thing of meat.
Summer sausage.
Oh yeah, what is that? It's deer, right?
Well, I mean, it can be, yeah, but summer
Hers was
sausage is,
deer,
yeah,
but
that's very common in the Midwest.
I didn't know that. Right. I did not know that. So I was so hungry, and I was eating this block of Tillamook cheese. This is how I found out what Tillamook was. And block of summer sausage, like back to back. And like I remember the guys were like, Sophia, share, and I was like, no. Like I
Get away
liked
from
it so much. And then later I was like, dude, that beef was so good. And she was like, oh no, honey, that was deer. And I was like, because I was still on my like hunting is bad. And so I was like, how dare I? But it was actually so good. I need to try more things with it, but
it
yeah,
really
that's
well, and that's the thing too, is like getting to consume what if you are at all like a crunchy, and you care about where your food comes from and stuff like that, you should probably hunt.
yes.
Having eaten the deer that I've harvested compared to like a store, because like here's the thing, right? And we all know this, you know this, but like the cow that I buy from the grocery store was also killed at some point,
Right, absolutely. Yes.
So
Yes,
there's
100%.
but and actually, in going back to the Africa stuff, we ate a lot of the meat that we shot while we were down there. The best, and the one that was the most surprising to me, was the zebra. A zebra fillet is now my new favorite fillet.
Oh, that's
Like,
interesting. Okay,
it's
yeah.
so good. Like
Interesting.
it was better. I was sitting there in this camp eating it, and I'm thinking, if you served this to me in a restaurant and charged me $100 for it, I wouldn't bat an eye at
Right.
paying that. It was so delicious. It
Oh,
was
that's awesome.
tender. It was juicy. Yeah. So zebra, fantastic. Wonderful, wonderful eating. Um, yeah. We ate a lot of different stuff. We ate wildebeest, zebra, gemsbok. I don't think we ate any of the impala, but maybe we did. I don't remember. Buffalo, sable, warthog. They took the warthog and they made it was basically like a ham and cheese potato casserole out of the warthog that I shot, and it was
Oh,
so
wow.
fire. I was
That's
like the part of me that lived in the Midwest was just like, just dump
yeah,
this
for
straight into
sure.
my mouth.
That's so interesting. No, I'm definitely interested. And it's really cool. I love the people in this industry that are multifaceted like you and Lena. I know we've brought her up quite a bit. She's like started this new hunting thing. I think it's a brand she works with or something. I need to look at her content more closely, but like she recently got into hunting, and I'm starting to see that there are more people like this multifaceted trying to get into all parts of it. And it's just I feel like it just kind of happens by consequence of being in this industry. Um,
Well, I can tell you why I have taken a shine to it. Uh, I said before this trip before this trip that my only interest in hunting is executing complex marksmanship challenges in non-consensual environments, right? the other thing gets a vote. The shot is technically difficult. And that was true before this trip. Now there's something more to it to me, and I'm still kind of figuring that out, because I know that I don't want to get up in the morning and like I don't want to, wait and go be cold in December and sit in a deer stand. I have no desire to do that.
Right.
But I do want to do more of this, and I do want to continue to do complex marksmanship challenges in non-consensual environments on, things like animals. But that was kind of how I sort of fell into it, because I don't want to. It's hard to say this without sounding like I'm tooting my own horn, but I'll talk a little bit about my motivations, right? So, especially as a revolver shooter, I have a master class in ICOR in Classic Division, which is the type of gun that I shoot the most. Last year, I shot IDP World Championship. I was the most prepared I've ever been for that match. I finished 4th, and I had that moment where I realized that like the limb fact of whether or not I win the match was not my preparation or anything like that. There were other shooters that showed up and beat me, right? Like Lena doesn't expect to win every match she gets. Well, maybe she expects it, but you train for it. But
Right.
other people get a vote in whether or not you win or lose.
Yes.
And so I had, I got a light pin from Gabe White shooting a wheel gun. I had really sort of, I know that if I want to go, make USPSA master or grandmaster in revolver, I can do that. I have the skill set to do that. I also know the amount of work that takes. And I'm not interested anymore in that kind of work. I don't want to dry fire every night for 20 minutes a night. I don't want to take all of my weekends to go shoot matches and things like that anymore. And it's not because I have lost my love or my passion for the sport. I still love the shooting sports, but I very much hit a point where the next thing is so prodigiously difficult to get to and requires such a tremendous investment of time and energy. There's other stuff I'd rather do. I'd rather go for bike rides. I'd rather watch Bluey with my son. But I'm still broken in that I'm not happy unless I'm finding a way to challenge my marksmanship skills. So hunting has given me that outlet, and because it's such a rush and because I'm such an idiot and I do it and I do, these great big ticket experiences, it gives me that ability to say, hey, I was actually able to test myself in this. And I feel a level of satisfaction about that I have to tell you, there was two of the shots that I made, I felt a level of satisfaction that was on par with anything I've experienced in a major match. Just the level of accomplishment and being like, holy shit, that was really cool. Like, yeah, on par with anything. The only shooting experience I have had that outstrips the feelings, the two of the hunts of the animals I took in Africa, the only feeling I have that's better than that was getting my fast coin from Ernest.
Yeah.
And let me think about that. Yeah, that's it. And that was because, like these animals, I had such an emotional investment in getting the fast coin. One of my best friends was there in the class with me watching it.
Oh.
Hang on. Some little known instructor named Tom Givens was also taking that class with me. So
Yep.
he saw me shooting, I don't know. You ever heard of Tom Givens again?
Yeah, I think I have. Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
that was a very emotional moment for me.
Of course.
And then taking these animals was the closest I had ever gotten to touching that again, in terms of a shooting accomplishment. So yeah, I don't know what I'll do next, but because I sort of fucked it up, right? Like I went to Africa like straight away instead of sitting in a deer stand. So I had this amazing
Instead of
uh,
what?
instead of sitting in a deer stand, right? Most people's first hunting
Oh.
experience,
Oh.
and this wasn't my first hunting experience, but it wasn't also my 50th. So it was definitely did the really cool thing kind of early in the game.
Oh, that's tough.
It
Yeah.
is. Well, have I ever told you, like, I've only been skydiving once and I have no desire or need to ever do it again? I went
Oh.
skydiving one time. It was because I was afraid of it or anything like that. But I
Right.
went with the Army's parachute demonstration team. So I did a
Oh.
tandem, I did a jump with the Army Golden Knights, and these like are the best skydivers in the world. So I was like, well, I don't want to go skydiving with the 24-year-old guy named Chaz who, smells like weed, and I'm not sure where he, how he packed his parachute. I did it with
Yeah.
the best in the fucking world.
Of
So like
course.
box checked.
Yeah.
And
That oh wow, holy shit. That's so cool. Yeah, I wouldn't want to go with did you say Chad or Chaz?
I said Chaz specifically because of the conversation I had with other Caleb earlier. Chad is a good
Yes.
name. Chaz is not.
That's so funny. One of his best friends' names is Chaz, and
Oh, sorry.
yeah. So
Sorry.
no, I'm glad you finally said something I agree with when it comes to names. I'm just kidding. I like Chaz as a person, but yes. For those of you that are like, what the hell are you talking about? My husband is obsessed with the name Chad. His name is also Caleb. Anyway, moving on. There's some context.
Moving on. Yeah.
Moving on. Yes,
There's a
yes, yes.
lot there. Well, and I think the other fun thing about hunting is it gives you opportunities to do things, just like, and again, there's so many parallels to that in competition shooting, right? You could basically take everything I've said about hunting and apply it to competition shooting. It gives you
Yeah.
opportunities to use your gear in environments that are very different than a static range. It gives you, there's pressure involved in it. And I'll tell two very specific Africa stories. So we'll talk about the wildebeest and the kudu.
Please do.
So the wildebeest, if you don't know what a wildebeest is, it's actually an antelope, but it looks like a buffalo. It looks like a miniature buffalo. All right. They weigh, if you've seen the original Lion King movie, the wildebeest were what trampled Mufasa. Okay. So, I had to get one back for our boy.
Absolutely.
So it looks like then in what I didn't know was that they actually call it the poor man's buffalo. What I
Huh.
didn't know is that they are notoriously tough animals. They are hard to kill. They tend to, and the owner of the farm that we were at told me after the fact that the wildebeest is the animal that hunters wound the most often and they don't recover because it is a notoriously tough thing. So I didn't know any of this going
Wow.
into it, right?
Yeah.
My professional hunter, CJ, he was my guide or my PH for this whole thing, asked me, what I wanted to shoot. And I was like, oh, I'd like to shoot a wildebeest. And I think it'd be really cool to try to take one with, the 44 Magnum, the Taurus Raging Hunter. And what I didn't realize, because this was like our first full day there, was he kind of gave me a look at the time that after spending a week with him, I realized was, oh shit, okay, we're going to fucking have to chase this wildebeest all over hell's half acre because this fucking idiot wants to shoot one with a handgun.
Hmm.
So we spot a nice mature old bull, and we are like creeping up on him, right? So we're crouch walking. Also, cardio. If you want to hunt in Africa, you should have cardio. Like you should have some good
Yeah.
cardio. I did a lot of cardio. So we're like creeping up on him, and CJ, like we're behind a bush, and there's about a 60-yard opening where there's no cover in between us and where this wildebeest is standing by a bush as well. And he goes, "It's 66 yards. Can do you want to try it?" And I was like, "Yeah, let's go. Whatever." Okay. So he throws out a pair of shooting sticks because I'm not going to try to freehand a 66-yard shot.
Right.
So I drop this thing down and I put the dot right over where you want to shoot it, which is you want to shoot most four-legged animals. You want to shoot them basically in their shoulder because that gives the bullet, if they're broadside to you, that gives the bullet the optimum chance to go all the way through both lungs and the heart. And so he drops that in. I drop the gun on it. And one of the things that I talk about in my revolver class is pulling a double action trigger is like riding a bicycle, right? When you're riding a bike, you can pedal fast or you can pedal slow, but you don't start, stop, start, stop. So
Hmm.
I have the gun out and I just roll through the trigger. Once I start
Hmm.
applying pressure, I never stop. Gun goes off. I wasn't wearing hearing protection. A 44 Magnum without hearing protection is super fucking loud. And the wildebeest kicks up, runs 10 yards, and flops over. I mean, just dead. We came up and it had, I thought I had the bullet around here somewhere. I saved the bullet, like specifically, that I shot it with, because it came out, it went in right where I wanted it to, hit both lungs, the heart, and basically came to a stop on the other side of it. And like they just popped it right out, fully mushroomed, beautiful bullet. Looks like an ad for the bullet when we pulled it out of the animal. Um, and I was nervous when I went to take that shot, and I was nervous because I never shot anything with this gun beyond 35 yards. I knew
Wow.
the
Okay.
math of where to hold for bullet drop and all of that stuff, and da 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 da. But I'm like, this is a technically complex shot, and in hindsight, I'm really glad that CJ didn't tell me that a lot of people miss and a lot of people wound these animals, because I wouldn't have taken the shot. I would have
Right.
been like, I don't want to look like an asshole. My pride would have gotten in the way. And I was like, I don't want to look like an asshole. So instead, I had this great opportunity. And, 66 yards, double action shot with a revolver was without a doubt one of the best shots I've made in my life. And then after the fact, everyone telling me, like, I can't believe you did that. That was the wildest shit I've ever seen. I'm like, oh, thanks. I feel good
That's
about
awesome.
myself.
Oh, absolutely.
Um, and that was really cool, because I didn't know that was a really cool moment, because I didn't have a lot invested in it, and my only real nerves came from knowing the technical complexity of what I was trying to do. Then the kudu. So I'll tell you the story of the kudu, and this is the first time I've told this story in its entirety.
Okay.
I've got a written version of it, but the full story, well, it goes like this. So one of the animals I wanted to take was a warthog, and the easiest way to get a warthog was to set up on a watering hole, kind of wait for them to come in to drink, and work to get you have to sit. Like, I had gained a new respect for blind hunting, because I had to sit and be quiet for 4 hours. That's like, and also kind of sit still, right? Like, you've been like, you
Could
see how
never.
much I've been moving just on this
Right.
call,
Right.
right?
Right.
I had to
Right.
sit still and be quiet for 4 hours. I am terrible at that shit. Um, so I'm set up on this watering hole, hoping for a warthog to come in, and I see this kudu, and he comes in, and he's a big old bull, but he's got one full horn on the right side of his head, and then his left horn, is snapped off about halfway down, and he looks super awesome. He's got scars on his face, and I'm like, that is the coolest looking thing I have ever seen, and I really want to shoot that animal, right? Like, I wanted to shoot that animal so bad, just in that moment, just from seeing him and seeing how cool he looked. And he came in with a couple of females and a couple of young males as well. So he had very clearly gone through that maturity cycle, right? He has, he's reproduced, he's done all of that. So we never see the warthog. I don't shoot the kudu that day. In my head, I name him Half Horn. And I asked CJ about it, and he's like, oh yeah, that guy's been around for a while. Last year, we saw him during season, and he wasn't with any females. So it looks like he drove a dominant male out and became the dominant male of that pack or herd or whatever you want to call it. And so in my head, I'm like, you're telling me this badass with one horn fought a bunch of other dudes so that he could become the dominant male? That's so cool, right?
Right.
So now there's like this connection, and I'm like, okay, so he's like an old warrior, like he's been around, and so all of that, like I got this investment into it. So then we're like, all right, we're going to get this guy. So we spend the next afternoon set up on that watering hole again where I saw him, hoping he'll come back in again. And he doesn't. And that whole experience was super tense. I'm like, but he never shows up. So then the next morning, we start driving around. We're going to do spot and stock. So we're, looking for him. We see him a couple of times. We get out, we see him, we track him. I got within 70 yards of him with the handgun. And CJ was like, 70 yards, can you make this shot? I was like, I will make this shot. And we came out to try to take a poke at him. And the two females he was with were like, what's that? Spooked and ran off, and he ran off. And that was, I never even actually saw him. I was
Oh
setting up to get
no.
into position to take the shot, and I just heard him crashing through the brush. And I was like, all right, fuck this guy. I'm going to go back to his watering hole. So the next morning, I go back to his watering hole, and I'm waiting there, and I'm by myself now. He was helping another one of our hunters. And so I'm by myself on this watering hole, alone with my thoughts in an audiobook. But and he never shows up. And so I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to go, for lunch. And I, get on my radio to call CJ, and I see the truck coming down the road anyways. And I was like, oh, that's weird. I didn't even call him. And he hops out of the truck, and he's like, we saw him. One of the other hunting teams saw Half Horn. Get in the truck. We're going to go fucking get this guy. I was like, let's go.
That's
So
awesome.
we get in, we go to where he was last seen. We track him. We don't see him. All right, fine, cool. We go back to the camp, have a little bit of lunch, come out an hour later. We were driving. So how a lot of it works is you drive around and you're looking, and then once you spot him, you get off and you try to track him in on foot, right? So we're driving around. We see him again. And at this point, I've actually given up. So we see him again, and we are 90 yards away, and I take a poke at him with the revolver. All right. And I miss. 90-yard shot with a wheel gun. I just airballed it. Don't know what happened to that bullet. I was willing to take the chance on that shot, and that's it. We don't see him again, and I give up. And I say to myself, all right, if I see him again, I'm going to take him with the rifle, because I'd taken my rifle and I put a Leupold 3x15 scope on it. Because I really wanted to complete this hunt. It was really important to me to actually finish this, finish what I'd started. And I decided that my desire to take him with the handgun was outstripped by my desire to be successful in the hunt. So I've got the rifle and all of that, and and I'm like, all right, if I see him again, we'll shoot him with the rifle. And we don't see him. And we're driving around, and it's like 4 in the afternoon, and I turn to CJ and I go, okay, I give up. Fuck this guy. Fun fact, kudu are called the ghost of Africa for a reason. They say, fuck this guy. If we see a cull gemsbok, a cool antelope with giant long horns, and we needed to shoot some cull animals for food, I'm like, if we see a cull gemsbok with that's a good trophy, we'll take that, right? And he's like, all right, cool. 10 minutes later, we're driving, and I'm kind of lost in my thoughts, and CJ goes, it's him, grab your rifle. And I grab the rifle, we hop out, and I look, and he is 190 yards away, and I've got a 308 rifle, and I'm like, fuck you. And CJ goes, and CJ's like, can you make this shot? And it, just like with the Axis hunt, I don't say anything because my response is to press the trigger. And he takes off running. And I'm like, there's no way I missed. Every single part of that shot I called. By the way, the skills I've developed calling my shots in the shooting sports, very beneficial hunting.
Ooh, okay, that makes
Yeah,
sense.
because I called it. I was like, I know where my sight was when I pressed the trigger. So unless the bullet hit something that I couldn't see in between me and the target, I hit him.
Right.
We get to where I shot him, and there's a huge pile of blood. We tracked this blood trail for 1.5 miles because it was not a perfect shot. It wasn't as good as the shot on the wildebeest. The wildebeest was a legitimately perfect shot. This one hit him a little high. I took out the top of one of his lungs. He would have died. It was lethal, but these animals are incredibly tough. So we track him down, and in one of the funny moments, CJ had said, all right, if we see him, just light him up. Rounds on target anywhere. Okay. And I got the sense that he was used to saying that to people who don't do competition shooting and don't necessarily have and I'm not saying I have super fast reflexes, but we had been tracking him for about 1 mile, and he popped out of the brush in front of us, and our tracker and CJ were in front of me, so I didn't have a clear shot. So before CJ could even say, that's him, shoot, I take 2 steps out to my left, take the safety off, and crack around. Because he said, if you see him, shoot him. And I was like, well, there he is. And I feel bad about this to this day, because a 308 going off next to your head without hearing protection is really loud. And that I
No.
did to
Okay.
CJ. So I felt bad about the tinnitus that I gave him from that. But then the fucking chase was on. So CJ grabs his rifle. I've got my rifle. We sprint after this thing and we split up and we're keeping him in between us as he runs. We're running. He comes through a clearing. CJ slams on the brakes. I slam on the brakes. We both shoot at basically the same time. You heard one of the guys that was with us said, I heard a bam, bam. And because it was like just two sequence shots. We both fucking missed. We keep running. I load another round in. CJ loads another round in. I hear him shoot, and then the thing comes out, and it pauses and turns back and looks at me, and I drilled it right through the ribcage, and it just flopped. And CJ had hit it with his previous shot too, and we probably sprinted a good 200 meters. I was in full, like all my gear, my rifle. I had my revolver on me. And I go, bam, he drops. I rack another round in and I put the sight on him as he's going down and press the trigger and it goes click. And in the dorkiest moment of my life, I go, I'm out. And I dump the mag. And then I realize my stupid ass left my spare mags back on the truck because I had brought the revolver with me. So then I go to transition. So I go to put the rifle down and grab my revolver. It's fallen out of my chest bag while I've been chasing this thing. So I have an empty rifle and my backup gun is 50 yards behind me somewhere. But thankfully that last round that I put into it was the finisher. And he expired on the spot. And we got up and we checked the animal, and it had, I mean, you could, where the first round had hit it, that 200-yard shot, it had been quartering away and it had blown a chunk out of it that I could like put my finger in and be like, oh, that's where the top of his lung used to be. No wonder he ran for so long. Yeah, it was awesome. Yeah, so if you're the sort of person who like, you know, if you as a kid like liked biology and like cutting dead stuff up, you should go hunt because you can like poke your fingers into tissue and stuff like that. But
I would have trouble with that personally.
That experience of 3 days of pursuing this animal to culminate in a run and gun shootout, you know, I was honored to take that animal's life. Like that felt special. And it felt special and it felt dramatic. And it was the last day of the hunt. We were leaving Africa the next day. And I mean, if I was writing it as a story, I couldn't have scripted it any better than that, right? But it was such a powerful emotional experience. That was that moment where I was like, oh, this is what people are talking about when they talk about that connection to the animal, the connection to the game. And it was funny because my two most significant experiences there, one of them happened because I shot an animal that I had no emotional connection to whatsoever, and it was just a really tough shot. And the other one was because I had been playing cat and mouse with this friggin' kudu. Like I had developed him into a whole character in my head, right? Like Half-Horn the kudu did not want to die, and he was not going to get got by me. And to bring that to a close was so rewarding. I can't really explain it to like people that have had that experience or an experience like it understand what I'm talking will understand it, and people who haven't would be like, that sounds cool. And I'm like, it was so fucking cool.
Right. Well, I'll let you know when I have an experience like it.
Yes.
I'll be like, now I know what you're talking about. I really am interested in this. And I have a few guy friends that are like, they're into small game hunting and they're like, hey, let's start there. Just try this out.
That's a great place to start. Yeah. I think I shot squirrels, and like when I was a kid, I shot squirrels with a 22 because that's what you did. Right. Right. And then there's a lot, and then you can do some other fun stuff like predator hunting, like coyote hunting is really fun. Because that is a battle of wits, because coyotes are sneaky and they're really, really smart, and they definitely don't want to get shot. But coyote hunting is a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed all the times I've gone coyote hunting. And yeah, I know it's the closest thing that I can describe that kudu hunt to is winning a match that you've prepared a ton for, like going into a match and knowing that not only did you, because I've won matches where like I didn't shoot my best, but like nobody good showed up, so I won. And a W is a W. I'm not going to fight it. I'm not going to complain about it.
Right.
But then I've also won matches where I shot my ass off and other dudes there were shooting their asses off. And that it feels better. It just feels better. And that's what that kudu felt like. I was like, oh, this was really fucking cool.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, even though you've had this incredible, just like 10 out of 10 experience, do you think you'll still do smaller game?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I still love stuff like coyote. I was looking at coyote hunt some places to try to call in some coyotes and shoot them with the revolver.
Ooh,
I want to do I want to do a South Carolina boar hunt because there's some really cool boar hunting down here. But
I want to join you.
yeah, absolutely,
Wait, really?
when I come back from this friggin' deployment,
Okay.
it'll be right around. Well, we'll probably want to wait till fall. I want to try turkey hunting because I've heard that turkey are actually incredibly difficult to hunt. And I'm like, how can a turkey be difficult to hunt? Like,
Right,
come
right,
on,
right,
it's the
right.
dumbest bird ever. But apparently they're quite difficult to hunt. I don't know. But,
Totally fair, totally fair.
and again, I'm never going to quit shooting matches. I'm never going to quit training to use a gun in a defensive environment. But I, you know, the fact that I also know that I can grab a double action revolver and make a 60 plus yard shot with it, I feel like I can also probably solve most marksmanship problems I get presented in the self defense environment. Probably. And
Absolutely.
and I'm not trying to toot my own horn. I really am not. But
Right.
but that's kind of back to the whole thing that I was talking about, right? Like this gives you that ability to be like, oh, I carry a Glock. Well, I got this 10 mil Glock. I'm 45 yards away in a blind from this big pig. Can I actually make a, fatal shot on it with
Right.
this gun that's similar to what I carry? Because the Raging Hunter is exactly the same in every mechanic. It's bigger in terms of caliber and weight, but in every mechanical aspect, it's a double action trigger. You know,
Yeah.
my carry gun that I had on the bike today is a double action revolver with a red dot sight, and the gun I hunted with is a double action revolver with a red dot sight. So there is 100% that those two things translate to each other. But yeah, I think that was the first time I've told the full kudu story. To hopefully interested audience. Hopefully
Oh
your
my gosh.
followers will like this.
Absolutely. And kudos are beautiful. I
They are
was
super
Googling
cool.
images while you were talking, so we'll have to throw some up on the shorts on social media. But oh my gosh, I can't imagine seeing one that is aged and has one horn and that
When
you
they're
feel connected to.
enormous,
And then,
they're
oh
like
my God,
600. They're like 600 pounds.
I'm looking at this picture. We'll throw it up on social of these hunters next to them, and I'm sure and we'll throw your picture up,
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
this one's a really good example of the scale. He's not joking. It's like what, like 3 times the size of a
Oh
human?
yeah. Well, and they get to like I said, they get to be it's like 600 to 800 pounds, like some crazy number. So yeah, and then wildebeest the one I shot was 600 pounds on the hoof. Um, I definitely the biggest things I ever shot because I'm not down poaching at the Walmart on the Rascal Scooter Lane. I guess it's the only place I could find something bigger. That was a mean joke. I feel bad about that. The
No,
minute it left
that's
my
okay.
mouth, I was
That is
like,
okay. I like it. No, this has been an incredible perspective to have. I've wanted this podcast. Of course, we have a rebrand coming soon, so I've been trying to
hmm
throw that in every episode to like prepare people. It's still going to be the same style of podcasting, but rebranded. All that to say, this is a topic that I've wanted on here for a while, and um, you're the first person for us to talk about it and be like, hey, we want hunting on the podcast, and then to be like, hey, let's get this actually aired. So
Awesome.
I've enjoyed
And
this.
again, there's so many people who are more knowledgeable than I am on this, right? Like I am the areas that I'm comfortable talking about with this are how it relates to self-defense, right? And again, that's limited to my experience, how it relates to me as a fairly well-trained, experienced person versus how it relates to somebody who's not trained, who doesn't have experience. They may have a completely different view of it, a completely different experience with hunting, with killing, and all of that. So I don't ever want I don't I what I don't want people to think is that I went on a couple of cool hunts and now I think I'm some sort of great big hunting expert because I'm not. if you ask me questions about strategies and tactics for hunting, because that's a thing, if you ask me about gear selection and all of that, I can only speak to what I've used and what I liked, right? And again, for me, I can only speak really with any level of expertise to how this affects me and how I think it's beneficial for people who are interested in personal protection. Because I really do. I am 100% on board with the conviction that this is just as good for you for personal protection as competition shooting, but for completely different reasons. Almost some of the same ones too. The pressure is the pressure's there, but you don't get the benefits of gun handling like you do from competition shooting, because you can have pretty poor gun handling skills and be a successful hunter. You can't have poor shooting skills, but you can have pretty poor gun handling skills, fingers on triggers, not moving well with guns or anything like that, and be a successful hunter. But I think that for, a lot of the mindset stuff, a lot of the pressure stuff, it's just as good, just as beneficial as if not more for some people, because some people don't want to go shoot a match, and, it may be easier for them to find this. They may have a friend who has a farm and, hey, yeah, I'll come sit in a tree stand with you and we'll see what this is like. And there's also a lot of different options with this too. Just like with competition shooting, if you don't like USPSA, you can go shoot PRS, or you can go shoot shotgun. You can do all of that with hunting, right? Like I probably won't do much rifle hunting in the future. I'm probably not going to, I love my Taurus Expedition. I've killed a bunch of stuff with that gun, and I have a connection with it. But the stuff that really gets me interested is handgun hunting and trying to get up close and creep up on them and take those really tough shots. So yeah, that's that's probably what I'm doing more of in the future.
I like it. Absolutely. And I personally did not feel like you were trying to come from a place of
I'm so smart
being an
about
expert.
hunting now.
No, you were sharing your experience, and that's what this podcast is for people to share their experiences, perspective, and for us to also just talk about things that don't get a lot of attention in the industry, like how our culture is changing and how social media is playing a big part in that, along with now how hunting applies to self-defense and perspectives that I would have never had before this. I also wouldn't even know where to look for this. So this is the first time this has been brought up to me, and now I have all these new questions that I'm going to go and try to answer now. So
Fantastic.
yeah,
And again, this isn't a new thought to me. Jeff Cooper was talking about the benefits of hunting for successful people who are successfully going to defend themselves, back in the 1990s. But podcasts like this, forums, blogs, things like this are valuable because they keep that knowledge from getting lost, and the only reason I remember that is because I obsessively read Jeff Cooper's columns when I was growing up. Every episode of Guns and Ammo, I skip all of the reviews straight to the back page. What's Jeff Cooper talking about right now? So,
right.
It's and preserving that knowledge, I think, is important. And I think that, as our gun culture becomes more urban and becomes less focused on hunting and more focused on personal protection, home protection, and stuff like that, the danger of losing some of this knowledge is significant, because, I worry about balkanization of the gun space. I worry about people who are, yeah, we all laugh about FUDs and all of that stuff, but I worry about people who are primarily interested in owning guns for personal protection, not wanting to talk to people who primarily own guns for hunting, because, I think that the guy who has, killed more animals than years he's been alive probably has some valid perspectives on what it feels like to kill something. And there's probably knowledge that can and should be shared across those, from that guy across to the guy who spent $40,000 on night vision and has taken every tactical carbine class in the world. Maybe I'm getting soft. I don't know, but I worry about people getting so trapped in their own lane. What's what we talked. Wait, were we live when we were talking about specialization, or was that before we started recording?
No, that was live.
Okay, perfect. But,
yeah.
I worry about that. I worry about, and it's easier than ever to it is easier than ever, even in the firearm space, to only consume information that directly relates to the thing that you are primarily interested in. Right? Like if all I ever wanted to learn about shooting was how to be a USPSA Grandmaster, I could do that. And I could never be exposed to any hunting content or self-defense content. I could curate my feed super tightly. And I don't think that's a good I don't I don't think it's healthy for people to do that. I think you should have other perspectives about the thing that you're doing, especially if it's I don't want to become a road racer, but I'm watching the Tour de France because these guys are the greatest bicycle riders in the world, and it's interesting. They're insane.
Yeah,
Insane. You should, no,
absolutely.
there's a friggin' documentary on Netflix about the Tour de France. I had no idea how long it is. It's
Yeah.
20 days. It's the equivalent of running 2 marathons a day for a month. It's fucking bananas.
They don't ride constantly, right? They.
They will ride. No, they'll ride for like 6 hours a day
Oh,
and
okay.
then do it again the next day with no. And there's 2 rest days in the whole thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's exclusively
Did
for
not
for
realize that.
insane people.
Yeah, that's
Like,
wild.
can you imagine operating at 80% of your VO2 max for 6 hours and
Nope,
then doing it again the next day?
absolutely not.
No,
Definitely
exclusively for
not.
insane people. I gained a, I, and, to the point about perspectives, I gained a tremendous amount of respect for them as athletes. I was like, because you never, like, when you think of like elite performance athletes, let's be real, nobody thinks about cyclists except for cyclists.
Right. Absolutely. I've always wanted to do I've always wanted to volunteer myself as the average American for Olympic
All
runners.
right.
Dude, right? Like just the lane with an average person running it. Like same gear, same everything, but just me. And or, someone random. One way I recently discovered I can do this is by shooting a match with Mike Seeklander, for example. And I haven't done it yet. I haven't put our two videos back to back, but I recorded his what's it called? His runs for him, and then he recorded mine for me. And so I've been meaning to stack them with the respective times and scores just to show what that difference looks like. I forget I can do that in my own discipline. Of course, it's,
Mhm.
USPSA isn't my main discipline, but it's something I'm dabbling in. So all that to say, yes, I have a great respect for that. Just becoming someone who's training for the tactical games and like having to now measure my weight lifted. And did I tell you I was doing that, by the way?
Yeah, you mentioned it. I think you're a
Yeah,
crazy person because those
I am.
those events look nuts.
They look nuts. And no, I don't look anything like the typical tactical games competitor, but Lisa and I are going to actually Lawrence, South Carolina,
Are
September
you going to the
28th through
sawmill?
29th. To what?
The sawmill, is that where it's at?
I think so. That actually sounds really familiar.
When is it?
September 28th through 29th of this year.
I won't have left the country yet.
You want to go?
Well, no, I don't, because I'll be on Air Force orders. But if I'm free, I'll come down and watch you.
Ooh!
What if it's at the Sawmill Training Center or wait, what city did you say it was in?
Oh my God, it is.
It's at the Sawmill.
Mm-hmm.
That's an hour from my house.
No shit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Ferry Road.
Yep. Oh yeah, yeah. I know where that is. Yeah, it's an hour from where I live.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'll
Here,
come.
I'm sending
If
you the
I can
link.
if I can break away from work and I've got a free weekend, I will come down and to be very clear, because I'm going to get activated and I'll be gone for a lot. I'm prioritizing my weekends with family. But if I
Oh
can,
my God,
come
you
down and watch
absolutely
you guys
should do that.
compete, or after you
Take
compete,
them.
drive an hour back up to Greenville and we can all go out for dinner.
Ooh. So we're actually, funny story, we're driving from the Combatives Association Summit in Mississippi
Okay,
that Monday, like the Monday before, because Tactical Games is Saturday, Sunday.
sure.
We're driving from Mississippi, so we plan to hit up. Uh, is it Charlotte, or is it what's the other SCS one?
Well, there's a bunch of them because if you're coming from
South
Mississippi,
Carolina.
Charlotte is in North Carolina,
Ooh,
and you
so
would have
what's
to
the
drive
one in
past.
South Carolina? That's CH.
Oh crap. Charlestown.
Charleston. So Lisa
Yeah,
really wants to go there. So we're definitely going to Charleston.
it's a little
Because
bit
it's
out
also
of the
going to be a
way,
little,
but it'll work out.
is it?
Yeah,
Well,
because
what I'm
Charleston is on
saying
the
is like,
coast and we're in the upstate.
so we could theoretically go to Charleston. We could just go to you.
Yeah, you could come to me and then after the match go to Charleston. I mean, it's not that out of the way. It's like a 4 hour drive from here to Charleston.
Ooh, okay, cool. Well, I have a call with her today, so I'll let her know we talked about this.
You go. But yeah,
Um,
like no joke. If I'm around, I will definitely come watch you. I'll come cheer for you guys.
ooh, please do. We're gonna look so awesome.
I've
I'm
never,
trying to be positive.
I've never in my life been to a match not to shoot it.
This will be
That
fun.
that
Well,
buy
maybe you should join
that
in.
buying it. No, no, thank you.
Okay, so
And I'm not
funny
saying this.
story. No,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead. I was
Well,
just
no.
gonna
So
say that
what? Mhm.
the team events. So people from like the elite winners can go and do team events with
Mm.
anyone they want to do that with. So we're competing against like everyone. That's going to be the funny part. But what were you saying?
No, and so yeah, I've made some jokes about tactical games and stuff like that, and they are
Yeah, sure.
just that, jokes. But because I have an Air Force deployment coming up, I'm not. I have no interest in the level of training necessary to prepare myself for the tactical games and the associated risk of injury. I
Totally
got.
fair.
I am still rehabbing an injury to my forearm
Ooh.
from before NRA. Like I am
Mm.
just now to the point where I don't have pain through this range of motion
Oh my
100% of the
goodness.
time. So
Yeah.
you know the
No,
the
definitely not worth it.
the risk of injury is significant, and
Yeah.
I will say this: I take care of myself. I don't eat super
Yeah.
great, but I don't eat a lot of garbage. The worst part about getting older, genuinely, is I don't heal as fast as I used to. Like it takes tweaked muscles, pain, stuff like that takes longer to get over. And the worst, and this is the one they don't tell you about getting older, is if you stop doing a thing, even for like a week, and then you start doing it again, you get sore just like you just started doing it. Like I didn't ride my bike for the week and a half that I was in Africa, and I came back, and the first day back, I was like, all right, I'm going to do like 12 miles, which isn't a long ride. And I was sore as shit. I was like, this is bull crap.
Hmm.
This is not, I didn't sign up for this.
Right. Absolutely. And it's not muscle atrophy. It's just
No.
oxygen diffusion
Yeah.
rates, things like
Yeah. It's
that.
just getting old is
Absolutely.
bullshit, is what it is. That's,
Exactly. Yes.
yes. Although, as my friend says, it beats the alternative, which is never getting any older. So,
Oh shit, that's a good point. That's a good
yep.
point.
But yeah, no, I would love to come. I'd love to come down to Sawmill and watch you guys compete.
Please
And
do.
then if we can't make that work out, I like that we're just like planning future activities on the
Yeah, absolutely.
podcast.
On the podcast.
Whatever.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
who cares?
Absolutely.
Listen, if you guys who are listening to this had cool friends like Sophia, you would get to do fun stuff like this too. So
Yes. Hey, same with you. I've had some really fun experiences with you, and it's always great to see you at events. I'm finally to where I'm finding my people that I go look for at events. It's so nice because I remember the first shot show, I didn't know anyone. I
mm,
was released and like basically clung to this one person that I knew, and then I got to a place where I was like, okay, I don't want to just hang out with her. I need to meet people, and I like detached myself, and then ended up finding great connections for 2023, and then 2024 shot show I found a little bit of my place more, but like 2025 I know exactly where I'm going now, and it's like feels good
yeah,
just like
there's
knowing my people.
that is the benefit is there are certain people that when I see them at industry events, even if I only see them 2 or 3 times a year, it's like no time has passed in between the last time I've seen them. And once as a professional in this space, and there's a difference here. And to people who are listening, I'm not saying this to downplay being an enthusiast or an outsider or anything like that. But as a professional in this space, once you establish a sense of community and trust with a small group of people, it makes the rest of the trip so much more fun. I've been close friends with, there's, a few people in the industry that I've been close friends with for the better part of 15 years now. And, I don't even talk to them every day, but if I see them, it's like no time has passed. And that's what, a big part of what has made this so much fun and why every time every time I've thought about getting a real job, because this is not a real job. I got paid to go to Africa and shoot a wildebeest with a handgun. It's not a fucking real job.
I feel
Um,
that so hard. I feel
you know,
that so hard.
and every time I have those moments where I'm like, I wouldn't miss the stress. I wouldn't miss working in a politically charged environment. I wouldn't miss any of these other things, but goddamn, I would miss these people.
Mhm.
And that would be,
Yes.
and you know, I was a few years ago. I transferred units in the Air Force, and pulling and disconnect. Like there are people in my old unit that I haven't spoken to since I left, and it's not because I don't like them. It's just because we disconnected that thread, and I don't want to disconnect the thread that I have to this community just yet. Maybe in another 10 years, but for now, I'm
Yeah.
having way too much fucking fun to quit.
Absolutely. I'm totally with you. I have this like random desire to go to law school. I don't know
Did you already
where.
not do med school to go
Yeah,
do
I
gun
went to med
stuff
school for a
though?
semester, then
So
jumped out. Yeah. So trust me, I'm not getting back to any schooling unless I am 100% there. But my job doesn't feel real as well sometimes. And even my husband the other day got on the phone with a good friend, and the guy was asking my husband what I do for a living. And he kept saying, like, how does that work though? Like, what do
like,
you mean she does this?
yeah, how do you get
And
paid
he
for
texted
that?
him, yes, he texted him that night and was like, dude, I just want you to know I didn't mean any offense to my questioning. I was just honestly shocked, because I was raised in the culture of like, get a 9 to 5 and that's a
Hmm.
real job. I had to show my dad my first like invoice from Meta when I told him I made money from a video that I spent 30 seconds making. It got 1.2 million views and I made $2,400 off of it in 2 months. And like,
Go.
and my dad was like, "That's not real," and I was like, "Dun dun dun,"
Here's here's the pay stub.
Yes, and don't get me wrong, I can't monetize anymore, but like
No,
sometimes this line of work feels very
it
unreal,
it
and
does feel pretended. That's okay. Like you know what?
it is okay.
We're I don't. There are I know that there are people in the firearms industry and in every enthusiast space that are there. I don't want to say in a cynical way. There are plenty of people in the gun industry where this is just a job, where it's just their 9 to 5, and whatever it is that they do is not. They don't do it because they're particularly passionate about the Second Amendment or hunting or personal protection or anything like that. They've just sort of ended up here. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that because the industry needs people like that to survive. The guys building guns in our factory in Bainbridge, some of them are passionate hunters, some of them are passionate shooters, and some of them are just paying their mortgage, So we need all kinds for that. And I think that if you are fortunate, like you or I, to get paid to do something that you are passionate about, you should probably lean into that. And I try to remember that, like, even when I have like really shitty days
Yes.
where all I do is like check emails and, argue with accounting about invoices for ads or something like that, where I do like normal job stuff, is that next week I'm going to go, shoot the Yankee Cup and get paid to do that. Or the week after that,
Absolutely.
I'm going to go to SHOT Show and get to meet all of these, yeah, all like all kinds of people. Yeah, yeah. It's like I said, it's a crazy crazy ride.
Absolutely. Yep, I'm happy to be on it for sure. It took some fighting to get there because leaving medical school was so hard.
I
I
have
fought
wanted to
myself
ask you
so
about
hard.
that. So, like, we started to talk about it when we were at NRA, but
Yeah.
you had to run off you had to abandon me to go off to a dinner.
Sorry. I
Um,
did.
well, we had started like two really interesting conversations. One of which I can't bring up on the podcast, but the other one was I had started to ask you about medical school and like, did your family want to have you examined to see if you had like suffered a brain injury or something? When you're like, hey, I would have
For
quit medical
leaving?
school to
No.
work in the firearms industry.
So I'll give you the elevator pitch of it if you'd like to hear.
I would love to. Sell me this
Okay.
idea.
Okay, cool. So my dad is a triple boarded cardiologist,
Hmm.
internal medicine doctor, and sleep medicine doctor. So he's an MD, boarded, like I said, went to college at 15, medical school, college at 15, high school at 18. No, I'm sorry, excuse me. Medical school by 18. Sorry. He was
You're
just
just smart,
incredibly
smart.
intelligent. Like, yes, absolutely. So he does this. And by the time he had children, he wanted us to be on the same advanced track. And my mom was like, absolutely not. I want them to be normal socially because you're
So you
not.
became a
And,
violin player?
so they did other things like we were competitive violinists, competitive pianists.
Because that's
I did,
normal.
yeah, totally normal. And then we had like tutoring, and my dad's from Cuba, so we.
Yeah, I will pause you for a second. So,
Yes,
as
tell me.
a fellow former gifted child, do you also struggle to do new things if you don't know you're going to be really good at them from the get-go?
Yep.
It's such a pain in the
YouTubing
ass.
is the perfect example. I have so much trouble releasing videos because I'm like, it's not perfect and I'm not an expert in this matter. And like, I have to like send the video to people before to be like, is this stupid as shit or can I post it? And yes.
No joke, one of the things that caused me legitimate anxiety when I was on this Africa hunt was I didn't want people to think I was bad at it. I'm
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
no, but I got to be good at this
Yeah.
because
But
I'm,
like, I'm
I can,
normally good at things.
yeah, I am good at, I am generically good at stuff. So yeah,
Yes.
okay, yeah, oh man, that's funny. Like when you're like
Oh, for sure.
competitive violinist, I was like, that's not a real thing.
It's a thing.
Oh, I know,
No,
I know.
absolutely. No, no, no. I know. Yeah, it's totally a joke. And they did all these things to make us incredibly bright in areas of our life to set us up for college. My dad wanted all of us to be physicians. I was the only one that followed suit. I was genuinely interested in biology, physiology, anatomy. That was always so interesting to me. I had trouble with the dissection part, ironically,
Hmm.
but in college, um, it's funny, my whole life, I have been trying to maintain what I love, which is self defense, training, you know, uh, encouragement, all of that, while trying to do what other people wanted. And the first time that happened was actually joining a sorority my freshman year. My sister and mom wanted so bad for me to have like a sisterhood. And all I wanted to do was fight Muay Thai and open my own dojo in Northwest Arkansas for the discipline I just got my black belt in at 18 called Musu Wan, and then have my instructor come up and do seminars. And I wanted to open up my own little training space while being a college student. And I instead put all of my time into being in a sorority. I quickly quit that like a year in so that I could pour all of that time into Brazilian Jiu Jitsu because I had found it, fell in love with it. And then meanwhile, every time I would call my dad and be like, Dad, I don't know if I want to do this. I love kinesiology. I'm sick of the biochem lab. I was doing skin cell regeneration research on E. coli for, it was a triple mutant thing, and I worked on it for 3 years, 15 hours a week. And so I did all of that. I worked in a jail. As a medical assistant, I worked in an urgent care clinic. I volunteered at the VA, I think something like 300 hours. I know it's a big difference, but I honestly cannot remember which one it was. And I did everything I could to be this perfect applicant. I got in. And then the gap year I taught kickboxing. I got to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as much as I wanted to do. I got into shooting in that time. I started sharing my journey. I started the podcast with a friend of mine. All these things started taking off, all the things I really wanted to do. And then I went to medical school.
That's right.
And
Because when I
remember,
first discovered you, I think it still
yeah,
said med student in your bio.
yikes,
Yeah.
probably. Yeah, so
Uh,
I dropped out into a master's because I couldn't stand the idea of only having a bachelor's. I was like, no, I don't know. No, there's no
I
way.
just before you finish, I was going to say before you finish that, I just got my bachelor's degree in May. So,
I
um,
It's
you know,
because I was
no,
slotted to
I
be a
know,
physician.
I
So it's
know.
like the difference between a bachelor's and an MD. I was
Oh,
like, I can't
it's
do this. Like, I
yeah,
can't
it's
fall
like the
asleep at
difference between
night.
a GED and a bachelor's degree, basically.
Exactly.
So, which I also have
Yes.
a GED. Fun fact about that.
Amazing.
Um,
Hell yeah.
so talk about like so when I was 15, I took the GED because in California, if you went to get a job when you're in high school, you either need your parents to fill out a ton of paperwork
Mm.
and like get parental permission, or if you're a high school graduate, you can just do it. So I just took the GED at 15
Oh,
and legally graduated high school because, and it was, and I like this is me patting myself on the back. it wasn't even hard. Like I was like,
Ooh,
this is a high school graduate, shit on my face. Yeah, so I
that's
do
awesome.
understand that desire, and I do think it's funny that you're like, well, I'm just gonna do something a little bit easier and go get my master's degree. Okay, chill out, smarty.
Yes. And I appreciate that. I actually I don't this is it's funny. Right now I'm trying to locate my diploma. They sent it to my old apartment. It got rejected, so we don't even know it's floating around somewhere. But I didn't walk at graduation or even like tell my family I was graduating, and they all got like really mad at me because they were like, "We wanted to celebrate." And I was moving at the time and getting married, so I was like, "This isn't worth walking."
Yeah,
But
not that important.
because I it didn't feel like it was an authentic reason to go into. I was personal training people at the time, so I wanted a deeper foundation into physiology. So I did a master's in exercise science and also just like use that as a little buffer period to be like, what the hell am I doing with my life?
Hmm.
And it was around that time, it was around that time I went to SHOT Show and uh, met a bunch of people and got a lot of leads to like what I could do with my future. And then Live Fire was writing me around that time and I interviewed with them and then just kind of ran from there. And they've been super supportive of all of my little side quests, my
Your side
competition
quests.
shooting
I
and
love the
YouTube, stuff like
side
that.
quests.
Yes,
That is kind of what they are a little
exactly.
bit.
Well, I'm glad we got to talk about our past a little bit. I don't typically go into too much detail there because I don't know how much people want to hear, but I'm glad that we got to have that conversation on the pod and I've enjoyed this just overall so much. Caleb, thank you for your time, especially on your birthday. So for those of you listening interested in the highlights of this episode, of course the entire episode is worth finishing. If you're here, you know that. Head over to She Shield on Instagram and TikTok. It is at She Shield Pod. Shorts are made by Lisa Hamilton. She's killing it. Definitely go check those out. All resources mentioned in this episode, along with where to find Caleb and information on specifically his posts to do with hunting that he shared recently on social, will be linked in the show notes if you'd like to go check those out and see how big some of the animals are that he mentioned today. Go do that. If you like the podcast, again, please, please, please rate it. It will help us get on just on the radar of other people that have yet to hear about it. And if you or anyone you know is a firearms owner experiencing a crisis, look into holdmyguns.org. They are an organization that will help you connect with a local gun shop or FFL to store your firearm for you. The link to access their website is below. Thank you for listening. In the meantime, stay safe and stay vigilant.